Looking for the best astrology guidance? You can enjoy an entire month of personalized astrology services for just $3.99. At Serious Joy, we pride ourselves on providing astrology enthusiasts with exactly what they're looking for. Daily personalized inspiration that speaks directly to the heart. Sign up today and you'll receive personalized messages straight to your phone 7 days a week. And that's just half of it. You'll also get access to our exclusive members-only site with tons of amazing features. Experience the most accurate astrology service on the web at SeriousJoy.com.
Hello and welcome to Namaste Today Live. I am your host, Sensei Christopher Witecki, a psychic astrologer, here to be your cosmic guide to personal ascension. And of course, we've reached that magical day. It's Friday. Thank God it's Friday. And we're feeling the Friday vibes today in the Sagittarius season. We are streaming live on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and X.com, formerly known as Twitter. And if you're here in our super chat, please tell us where you are watching from and say hello to our community. And I'll hear, hello, Michelle Bell. It's been at least 24 hours. Hello, Elaine. Hello, Jill Louise. So nice to see you. She is in Illinois, I do believe. Hello, Sydney. Nice to see you. Hello, Neptune girl. It's always a pleasure to see you. Hello, Rachie. Hello, Sun Scorpio 71 in Minnesota. I've been watching Fargo lately. No offense to Minnesota people. Great series. Hello, Danielle in South Florida. Hello to Sarah O'Connor. Hello, Kat. Nice to see you. Oh, and someone in Colorado, but they're coming in a little too fast now. From San Francisco, Katie. And one final hello, Ash Lee. I love the way you spell that. In Texas. I got a home in Texas. I got exes in Texas. It's part of the fun. Well, friends, we are having a really powerful week here. This is a powerful time in our lives, frankly, and we have a great show to help you with the upcoming week. This week, we have some interesting things. Mercury is going to sextile Venus, which is going to be our brain and our heart coming on the same page. We have a powerful new moon in Sagittarius that's going to fertilize the future narrative. And on Wednesday, Mercury is retrograde. So take care of your technology now before things start to fits out. We'll be talking about that in the show as well. And later tonight on ASTRO MINGLE, the creators of the Genius Frequency Methodology, Doctors Brian and Chelsea Ray Lumb. Looking forward to that discussion on healing and what they have discovered. But first, let's take a look at the week's moods and your zodiac weather. This zodiac weather is from Saturday, December 9th to Friday, December 15th, 2023. Looking ahead at your weekend forecast, this weekend you wrap up the details of how your daily life is going to change, and then on Sunday you put that change into motion. Let's drill down. On Saturday, it's sunny and self-loving. It's also Love Fest Day, the most loving day of the month. Tell everyone you love that you love them. Step 17 means Saturn rules the day, and you are committing now to the new narrative and the life you want to live. And with Venus opposing Jupiter, you're also feeling a promotion of self-worth. On Sunday, it's sunny and focused. Step 18 indicates Mars rules the day. This is the day to take the first step and activate the new narrative. You're also feeling boundaries for the changes of manifestation and production with the moon in Scorpio, making this step feel very important. Looking ahead at the 5-day mood forecast for the week, over the course of the week, you'll put the finishing touches on transforming your daily life, and a new moon in Sagittarius holds emotional space for a changed destiny. On Monday, it's sunny and determined. Step 19 indicates Earth rules the day. You are now manifesting the new narrative, which means you're holding love and protecting all the changes you've made. With Mercury sextiling Venus, you're also coming in alignment with your inner self, and the moon shifts into Sagittarius, so you begin to emotionally review all the belief changes you've had so far in Sagittarius. On Tuesday, it's sunny and passionate. Step 20 means the moon rules the day, and just in time for the new moon in Sagittarius. You are holding emotional space for the future and holding space for a change in your destiny. On Wednesday, it's sunny and swift. Step 21 means it's starting to get fun. Jupiter rules the day, and this is the final Grandmaster step of the Sagittarius season. You are writing the new narrative, and just in time, Mercury goes retrograde and will remain retrograde till January 1st. On Thursday, it's snowing with a chance of lightning, Step 22 means Uranus rules the day. Expect the unexpected. You're taking your new story even higher and probably opening up to new dimensions. And with the moon in Capricorn, you're feeling this change as quite serious. And then on Friday, it's sunny and empowered. Step 23 means Mercury retrograde now rules the day. This is the day where your plot for the future will be clarified. You'll be coming to some new conclusions. And with Mars trining Chiron, you're also coming to realize that a relationship in daily life might be healing. And with the Sun trining the North Node in Aries, you're realizing that you are birthing a new character.
It's serious joy, joy, joy.
If you haven't already, please be kind and do subscribe to our YouTube channel, Serious Joy TV. Hit the bell button so you're notified. And if you don't mind, please like this program so our YouTube algorithm will suggest us to other astrology fans. Namaste Today Live is sponsored exclusively by SeriousJoy.com. We are a spiritual life coaching service using your personal astrology as the mechanism for our coaching. Probably our biggest feature is the Daily Pep Talk podcast. 7 days a week, we coach you on the energy of the day and practical applications to use to take advantage of the energies and manifest your heart's desires, which what we call the golden egg. We also use a proprietary spiritual algorithm to generate coaching and calculate your spiritual awakening, which we call the STEP system. On top of that, we have a stellar spiritual staff, metaphysical minister and astrologer Robbie Hunt, sound healer Kristen Ryder, angel intuitive Devin Doer, and lunar ceremony artisan Joe Zammit. Plus, we have ascension programs, the 40 Days of Self-Love, the 40 Days of Truth and Purpose, and so much more. Please keep streaming. At the end of the show, I'll give you some updates on what's happening, but this is what produces this show. Come on down to SeriousJoy.com to find out more. And with that, let's move on to the show with our planets and transits. Ooh, I love that Jupiter picture. That's awesome. Great job to our director for picking that one out. Jupiter is so appropriate, actually, because that's the energy of Sagittarius in which we are. And in today's show open, I'm going to talk about really the power of Sagittarius and what the belief structure is. I spoke to this last week. I'm going to add on to it this week. What's interesting about consciousness is that we are just consciousness. We are consciousness that wants to experience ourselves in the flesh. And so energetically, I believe we come down to play out certain spiritual goals. And those spiritual goals, by the way, can be calculated with Neptune in your chart. So if you go to your natal Neptune and the placement of your Neptune, the step number of it, the sign, and the house that it's in, it'll give you a little bit of an idea of what your soul was intending to do when you come down. Now, we get much deeper on that as well in the 40 Days of My Truth and Purpose, which is a 40-day program at Serious Joy that teaches you your chart. So you'll learn all the little fingers and directions of what your soul wanted to do. But Neptune, in essence, is the spiritual bucket list. And from what my research shows, we in this lifetime really had two major eras, spiritual eras, that we were going to live. I've talked about this, but I'm going to reframe them now and give them new titles as eras instead of the story you were born to versus the story you were born to live. The first era is that story you were born to. And Neptune pretty much wrapped up that era from 2012, when Neptune entered into Pisces, to literally last week. Last week was, I think, the dawn of the new era. In fact, the official dawn, I would say, will be this new moon this week. We sort of ended the old era, and we've been between eras since. And that spiritual era literally is a vibrational shift. Now, I've been getting a lot of reports from people, reading comments. There are people right now who are having a lot of physical symptoms in their body, which really, if you think about it, the timing of having doctors Chelsea Ray and Brian here on tonight is kind of amazing, because we're actually dealing with the physical symptoms right now of our spiritual ascension. And when I say ascension, I'm not necessarily regarding the vibration here on earth. I'm actually regarding us elevating now to a new spiritual intention, which is what we are between right now. Neptune stationed direct last Wednesday, or 2 days ago, the taping date of this. And that was the official clicking into gear of the new spiritual era. And this new spiritual era, I have called the story you were born to live, the one that you came really excited about. So I believe in heaven in this lifetime, before we all came down, we had two major objectives. One was to clean up our spiritual act from the dark ages. So all the problems and the traumas and the major things our soul is still holding on to. And the second was to be here at the time that Earth has one of the largest choices it's ever had in Mother Earth's history, which is, are we going to elevate to the higher consciousness, or are we going to destroy ourselves? Now, actually, if you watched last week's show, which is very powerful, we had Ruben Langdon on, who talks about interviews with extra dimensionals. He was actually saying in that show that Earth is already at 4D. It's the human beings that are trying to catch up. So what I was saying was, in the last week, I've been talking to a few people, good friend of mine, Gary Lyman with the Human Garage as well, having reports in where people are saying that there's broken bones, people are having major illnesses, people are catching COVID, which of course happens all year long, but the uptick has gone up. People are getting colds. And really what I think is happening, and we'll talk to our guest tonight about this, is there's a purge going on of the old spiritual energy that we are wrapping up. I also believe, like in my case, where I broke my left foot, I literally had a past life memory that I hadn't really resolved, where I ended up being club-footed for the rest of my life. And this lifetime, it was just a broken foot. So energetically, we are between these two spiritual eras. Then you have that beautiful picture of Jupiter, which is our narrative on the earth. And that's a little different than our spiritual intention. It is our actual belief structure. So what happens is, I believe we incarnate into the body with these spiritual intentions, and then we sort of, the way we grow up, the environment you grow up in, your parents, what you're being told around you, where they say environment sort of chooses destiny. I don't believe that per se. I believe the destiny was chosen by choosing the environment. So I think our destiny is chosen by the environment we choose. So we choose to be born in the South or in the North, or we choose to be born in a conservative family, or we choose to be born in a liberal family, or we choose to be born in a broken family, right? And so what happens with that choice is we build a narrative and a belief structure, which is what Sagittarius is. And that belief structure is actually what ends up changing the structure of all of the plot, the characters, and the events that happen in our life. So we spring from this belief structure, basically, from our birth. So if you can think in these terms, so far in your life, you have been in a belief structure that is based on the original story you were born to, or the old era. So that was your family that you were born to, the environment you were born to, etc. But as you have grown, especially since 2012, and begun to realize that this physical perspective you are taking, this belief structure you are taking, this community, these associations, the archetypes, your assumptions, your stereotypes. Stereotypes are basically just an archetype, frankly. I know people take it really personally, stereotypes, but they're just conditions of the mind trying to just group certain types of energy together. But all this belief structure that we have had has all been based on that original incarnation, based on that original spiritual intention. So what's fascinating is right now, Neptune said last week, okay, it's time for the new spiritual era. It's time to move into the next intention we have on Earth, which is to help the Earth through this transition from the age of darkness to the age of light. Let's just put it that way, in a simple way, light being all sorts of things. That's another philosophical discussion. And so now this week, what we have been doing is we have been ending the old belief structure and birthing the new belief structure, or the new conscious structure. Now, interesting, in astrology, Pisces squares Sagittarius. And anytime you have an energy that squares, all right, that comes to a cross, basically, these are energies that form the fabric or the vertices of reality, so the Metatron's cube of reality. So any squaring energy forms a corner that creates the illusion of space and time. So in astrology, the spiritual line that you are living crosses the belief structure line that you are living, and that creates the one corner of what we call reality. So we could say that in the last 2 weeks, you've been resetting a cornerstone to your reality because you have re-architected the spiritual direction you are going. And now we are re-architecting the belief structure and cultural direction that we are going. And so therefore, we are changing the shape of our reality here. And we're doing it in 4 days. So I think part of what's happening with the ascension symptoms and the purging going on with people and their bodies and their health is a whole lot of things. And that's going to be an interesting topic to get into. And we'll be getting into actually physical body issues here in the next few weeks with our Astro Mingle guests. I do have coming up in a couple of weeks, tapping with Brad. I don't know if you're familiar with Brad, but the ability to tap to relieve sort of situations. So we're going to be doing a lot of investigation because the body embodies the soul's frequency and the soul's karma. And so when you shift frequencies, which can be seen as a couple of things, one, the vibration of the soul and how fast it's actually vibrating, and two, how that turns into a frequent manifestation into physical reality. How frequently does someone call you dumb? Well, that's based on the frequency of energy going on in spirituality. When you have a shift in these frequencies, the body, which is attuned to the old frequency, moving to the new frequency, goes through a little bit of a pain and a response and a reaction. And I believe that's really what the major purging has been. Everyone's bodies have had some sort of a tick or another in regard to this shift. And I think that incidentally, we'll be experiencing that likely when it's best for you. It's not clockwork when the body finally responds. It has to do with everyone's own metabolism and the way they cycle and the way they present in their body. But bringing it down to where we are this week, this is the exciting week because this week you will commit now to the new belief structure. And that in a simple form is basically saying, all right, my life used to be about struggle and chaos. My life used to be about codependence. My life used to be about going without, striving and having lack consciousness or poverty consciousness. And those things that your life was about, again, was part of the old era. Okay, OE, we're saying here at Serious Joy, the OE versus the NE, the new era that we are doing now. So as a result, my story is no longer about that. And I think in this last week that we just lived here, up until the moment here Friday, we have been realizing that a lot of these old storylines and timelines are no longer resonating with us anymore. This week, we realize, okay, well, then what is the new? What is going to be the new narrative? If I'm not going to, and in some cases, it's literally an opposite. So it's like, okay, I used to live lack, now I'm going to live abundantly. That's simple, right? Or in other cases, I think it might be a complete left turn somewhere we did not anticipate whatsoever. And I do think I'll just put out there, I believe there's a lot of fascinating surprises coming up because I think that had we known, so when you were born, if you would have known about the era you're about to live, you probably wouldn't have done your soul homework for the old era. You would have wanted to skip right to the new era. I know at least that's the case for me. And when I know I've got something wait for me, I sort of rush through dinner to get to dessert, right? Like I sort of rush through the work to get to the outcome. And so I believe that there are many surprises ahead of things you would never have imagined simply because your soul deliberately kept it from yourself so that you wouldn't mess up the first goal, which was to clean up the old era, to move on to the new era. So in essence, what we want to do this week is really ask our heart what sort of story we want and realize that the details and the plot twists and the characters that show up will be part of the popcorn that, the movie that we watch as we're eating popcorn. That's going to be some of the fun parts, basically. And this goes especially to Virgos. I know you like to plan all the details, but just do that to give the universe an idea of what you're looking for. Let the universe surprise you a little bit too. That's part of the fun of manifesting here on Earth, is that we're in this co-creation vortex. And I think I spoke to this last week, that I really think that life is just a theme park. You sort of choose a theme park with a certain theme and you go down there and you get back to heaven. You're like, well, that sucked. I'm not signing up for that attraction again. I think I'll try this other attraction. I think we skip around attractions. So as we move on to this week is titled The Dawn of a New Era. And this is the dawn. The dawn is, in essence, happening from the new moon that we have happening on Tuesday, incidentally. That will be the actual dawn. But, consciousness is fluid. There are no exact lines and exact points. It's always a gradation spectrum of consciousness. So we are basically tuning in and steering into the new era this week. The subplot of the week we title The Reluctant Star. The Reluctant Star. And this is a very important sort of subplot going on in this life is, and you've probably experienced this before in your own life. It's like, be careful what you ask for. You've probably heard your mom say that or your dad say that. It's because, yeah, sure, this sounds really great. I want to move to a warm state. I want to leave this cold environment of living in the north. I want to live in Florida or California or Texas or Georgia. Some are hot and really cool. And then once you say, sign me up, then you look around your house and like, oh, shit, they've got so much to pack. It's going to cost a ton of money. I don't even know where to live when I get there. It's like you suddenly build in this, there's this reluctance inside of you. So the subplot of the week, hello in Aspen, Colorado. This came to my eyes with those snowflakes. The consequence of switching the channels and going to the new era is that you've been all packed in and comfortable inside yourself in the old era. So there's a reluctancy. And I call it the reluctant star because I believe the new era is the opportunity for everyone on earth to experience the star in their heart, to be the star they really are, to recognize where they shine. I personally believe we're going to see mortals shine like they have never shined before ever on the earth. I think we're going to see some great, amazing spectacles of human potential. I think we're going to see some amazing metaphysical magic from children that are going to be born into the world. I think we're about to see something we have never seen before on planet Earth, probably since Atlantis times and Lemuria times, if you know those old eras and lore, so to speak. And so this reluctance in you to move to the next space is really the reluctant star, which is something you hear in Joseph Campbell's work as far as the hero. Once the hero signs up for the journey, the hero is reluctant. So Star Wars is a great example. He based the Star Wars all on the hero's myth and the hero's journey, basically, of Joseph Campbell's work. And as soon as Luke Skywalker finds out he's going out in space, he becomes this whining crybaby that's whining at every spot. And that's sort of what we're calling the reluctant star. Notice our staff is not using hero, because one thing we believe about the new era is there are no heroes because everyone is their own hero. So I think that title is being retired. And I joked in a staff meeting, what are Aries going to do if they're not going to be the hero anymore? I think it's going to be sort of interesting to see what happens in that regard. But I believe the hero is officially retired in the new era and replaced by the term star, where everyone's going to twinkle. And just in case you think that there can only be one or two stars, like Hollywood has made us to believe, I say go outside and look up in the sky and see the hundreds of billions of stars that are coexisting right now in the universe without any problem or getting in the way of each other. Occasionally one gets gobbled up by a black hole, but we'll save that for another episode, right? That is a possibility. So the subplot is the reluctant star, which means there's going to be a part of you that's fighting to keep the old going. There's going to be a part of you that's still uncomfortable with being uncomfortable, right? Who is reluctant to do the inner changes that need to happen. And I'll be pointing out the transits that's happening this week where the universe is helping you get some inner adjustments to your star. And then the question of the week is, what is my purpose? What is my purpose? And that may sound like a deep question, but if you've been a part of SeriousJoy.com and you did the 40 Days of Truth and Purpose, you came up with 36 purpose statements that we came up with what our purpose statements are. So we have 36 pieces of those purpose statements. We turn those into a Bill of Rights at the end of the program, by the way, which means if this is my purpose, I therefore have the right to do this. I have the right to do that. It's the birth of our new inner spiritual constitution that we've been working on at SeriousJoy.com. But I think this week, those questions become very handy. Keep them by your side for my fellow joiners, because this week, I think as you come into the transition between the old era and the new era, that transition begs the question, well, what is my purpose? The purpose is what your heart desires to do. The purpose is the third decan of the ninth house, in my opinion. So purpose is based on the core of your belief about who you are. If you believe that you are the next metaphysical magician of, since Edgar Cayce, if you believe that's who you are, well, then you should believe that your daily narrative is you're out doing those things, which means your purpose is probably to show the world what's possible in the angelic realm, or show what's possible in the psychic realm, or show what's possible in the metaphysical realms. And I do believe that we're going to have millions of spiritual pioneers sort of exploring the higher realms of consciousness, like Lewis and Clark once explored America, and reporting back to those who aren't interested in climbing these conscious mountains what they are seeing. So I believe this is the greatest era of human discovery we have ever lived, and I believe we will make abundant leaps and bound transformations into that territory. So this week, anytime you question your direction, question, well, what is your purpose? And it's based on what you believe about yourself. Now, from the angelic realm, we do have an angel intuitive, a fabulous reader named Devin Dewar on SeriousJoy.com. She gives us daily angel intentions and intuitions. That's what daily intuitive, angel intuitive. She gives us messages every day, but she also gives us messages for the week. And this week, she says the angels say, what is the answer in life? The answer, says the angels, is you. You are the angel. You are the answer you're looking for. You are the solution you seek. Part of the new era is that the answer is not outside of us. The answer is inside of us. And this is part of the new era philosophy, if you will, that the answer is you. You hold all the answers. You are the secret to the universe. You are a child of God. It's you, dummy. Basically is a sign I want to say and put up in my room. It's you, dummy. The second thing she said is to do it your own way. The angels are saying it's time to do it your own way. You are pioneers of the new era. So it's up to you to do it your own way. It's up to you to find the path. There is no proven way this has been done, unless you can go back and interview Nostradamus or someone from the ancient realms and the mystery schools. We don't know. We are rebuilding, reimagining this. So you do it your way and heal yourself. Don't expect the outer world to heal you. Heal yourself. Again, brilliant timing with Chelsea Ray and Brian Lumb here today, and the idea of healing yourself. And then the last thing that Devin and the angels had to say is to not pay attention to criticism. If there is criticism, first of all, expect that criticism, because if you're going to break away from your family unit, if you're going to break away from your community, misery loves company. They're going to probably pull you back. All right. And that's because they don't want to be left behind. It's also FOMO, fear of missing out. They don't want to they're too lazy to do it, but they don't want you to do it because they didn't want to feel bad that you're getting something they're not getting. These are all the, guerrilla thinking, old era type of structures of consciousness. But for the pioneers who are watching today, who know in their hearts they're pioneers, expect criticism, but ask your heart, is that true? And if it's not true, then realize you have a perspective change. Yeah, it may look like from that angle that I'm kidding myself, but from this angle of me outside looking out, I know in my heart it's not true. So no longer use the idea of other people, as your guide to whether or not you're on the right path. And really, that's the truth. From this point forward in ascension, nothing on earth is your guide. From this point forward, only above earth dimensions can be your guide. I am simply, at this point, I'm a guide, but I'm on the journey with you. So I just happen to have the map, but I don't know either. We'll take a step and find out together. I have the map, but that doesn't mean I've done it before. So even the people who are officially guides, I have to go to my guides. I have to go to heaven. We have to go to the extra dimensionals. We have to go to these other realms who've already been there, done that. There are no human guides at this point that know the journey. It's up to us to pilot it. And I believe most of the people who are watching this show are pioneers or either supporters to pioneers of the new era. And that's what we say. It's not a new age, it's a new era. So let's take a look at the planets this week and see how this is going to break down state of awareness by state of awareness. First of all, the sun, which is our heart, is in Sagittarius, which is the collective consciousness of our belief structure. And the sun this week moves from step 17 to step 22 Sagittarius. And this is really profound and sort of perfect in the way it's been bracketed here. Step 17, which is tomorrow. Today we're at step 16. Hello, Teresa Howard. I just caught you. It's good to see you again. We go from step 17 Sag to 22, which means you will commit tomorrow on Saturn Day. Saturn Day will be ruled by Saturn. It's named after Saturn. It's ruled by Saturn this week. We will commit to the new daily life story. So this is just a generic story. It's not specific with details. It's the story that I'm now going to move on to my greatest creative potential. I'm going to move away from anything that's taking away my energy or move away from codependency. And I'm going to move into an age where it's all co-creation with other people. You write your own story, but we commit to our daily life story. Then as we move up through the degrees, actually, we're going to go to step 23 this week. Actually, that's a typo on my part. As we move up to the degrees, we get to the new moon at step 20, which will be on Tuesday. And I'll show you the astrological chart for this. But that new moon on Tuesday is at 20 degrees, which is us feeling step 2, feeling the time and space. Oh, look at that. I've got some Apple balloons going up there from doing this. I got to be careful with my gestures now. Apple's hijacked my hands. Every time I do something with my hands, Apple's going to have some sort of a play out. I need to talk to Apple and get some of the ones I want in there. But anyways, the new moon at step 20 says we're going to hold emotional space for the destiny that's inevitable. So if I'm going to change my daily life story, I'm no longer a loser. I'm no longer behind. I'm no longer the one left behind. I'm no longer the one learning. I'm the one teaching. Whatever that daily story is, what does that mean for where my purpose is headed? Therefore, where is my purpose? What is the destination? What is the final destination? And so that's what we're calculating with our heart this week. Our heart is choosing the story, and our heart is then choosing the direction of the future with the energetic seeds of the new moon. Now, Mars this week moves from step 10 to step 14, and that's in Sagittarius, and that's behind the sun. Mars is our ego. And so this means that our ego begins to start implementing this new story that we have committed to, this new daily narrative. So in other words, what the planets are basically saying is, this isn't a time where you come up with a new story and you say to yourself, okay, and I'll get to that as soon as I can. Mars is saying, oh no, you implement this right away. And let me tell you, you do need to implement it right away. So if you choose that your story is that you're no longer going to play the role of the victim, then you act like it, and you act like it as of Monday, okay, when Mars moves into that second decan. So this is a time, mark my words, where if you don't practice what you preach, you're going to be stuck in the old era. You have to act, step 9, to activate the new era. So you have to start putting into behavior. So the best way to think about this is to just change your behavior and then modify and sweeten your behavior and change your behavior in everything. It's like drive a different way to work, prepare breakfast a different way, do the mundane differently. Because I find if you can change the mundane, everything else changes. If you try to change the big things and you don't change the mundane behavior and how the mundane can help you get your goals, then you find that your mundane holds you back from the big goals. So you have to change the mundane behavior. And that's what's happening with Mars this week. We're changing our mundane behavior to the new story, the new narrative, in essence. Now, in the consciousness of Capricorn, we have had Mercury dip into Capricorn. And Mercury in Capricorn and Pluto in Capricorn, this is a big deal. We'll talk more about Capricorn at the end of the month. But first of all, because Pluto will not be in Capricorn in December of next year, this is the last time the heart will dance with Pluto in Capricorn. They won't do any more waltzes over power. So with Pluto at 28 currently, we're still manifesting the new seat of power in the high degrees of Capricorn. This is the new seat of power here with where Pluto is. That means that all the changes, the logistical changes that you make, put you into a new empowerment. And that would literally mean examples like, I'm opting out of this homeowners association and selling this condo because I don't want to be answerable to some committee, changing my seat of power. I'm going to go off and be independent contractor now. I don't want to have to be told what hours to work, changing my seat of power, Pluto. So we're making a change of our seat of power, which makes logical sense because if you're changing your narrative, based on a new era, well, then, yeah, maybe you don't play the same seat of power that you did in the old era, especially if we were wounded and we were challenged, and in essence that it was holding back our potential for power. But with Mercury in Capricorn, Mercury this week will station retrograde. Mercury goes metrograde. That's how I like to say it, as of Wednesday. And for those who don't know, Mercury retrograde is when Mercury is actually swinging around the sun. So it's actually swinging around one of the sides. And so since it swings around, it appears as though it's going backwards as it swings around. And that appearance is for 3 weeks. What it means on a metaphysical level is it means that you suddenly think inward instead of thinking outward. Usually in the Mercury Gemini spheres of consciousness, one of the twins is thinking outward and the other twin is observing. And what happens is they flip. And so you suddenly are thinking inward while observing. Also, the two hemispheres of Mercury are logical and intuitive. Oh, here we go with another damn Apple thing. Damn it, Tim Cook, you're going to get an email from me. So basically, Mercury retrograde is also logical and intuitive. And what tends to happen in a retrograde is if you're logic dominant, I find your intuition kicks in. And if you're intuition dominant, your logic kicks in. Now, I'm intuition dominant. So whenever Mercury is retrograde, I am a taskmaster. I get so much done in those 3 weeks. I usually invent new things for the company. I usually get all sorts of things done. I sit around in sort of an intuitive haze most of my life. For those who know me, I can just haze out. And then Mercury retrograde, and I'll be like, all right, let's write the checks. Let's sign the contract. Let's type up the forms. I get super Virgo when Mercury stations retrograde. So you'll notice. But Mercury is going to station retrograde at Grandmaster 8 Capricorn, and it's going to retrograde back to 22 degrees Sagittarius, where it will station direct on New Year's Day. How's that for timing? New Year's Day, Mercury's like, and we're set to go. The timing of these transits this year is just so tight and impeccable. It's pretty amazing. So Mercury stationed retrograde at 8 means that we're going to rethink. Mercury retrograde goes, it's time to go inward and think about, hey, is my self-discipline, oh, here we go again. Is my self-discipline in order for this new era I want to live? Is my self-discipline really in order? Am I responding to myself correctly? Am I making the right goals for myself? And that's what Mercury retrograde in the from 8 degrees to the bottom of 0 Capricorn is. It's time to rethink my self-discipline. In other words, the priorities of being myself. Now, that Mercury retrograde is the reluctant star. That's the star going, oh, I really want it, but I don't know if I can do it. And that's where Mercury goes inside and says, okay. In fact, the timing again is impeccable, because we have the new moon on Tuesday that goes, okay, this is the future I want. And then Wednesday, the next day, Mercury's like, and retrograde. So as soon as you say to your heart, like, okay, this is the future I want. My purpose is to be the next Edgar Cayce. My purpose is to be the next great explorer of higher dimensions. My purpose is to show the world how special they are. Then suddenly it's like, okay, am I set out to do that? Am I set up to do that? Am I capable? Am I structured inside myself correctly? And that will be, in essence, what the Mercury retrograde is going to be asking for. Then we talk about this too. After you figure out, it's like, okay, I'm going to have to change this. I'm going to have to get up early. I'm going to have to start meditating. I'm going to have to start really showing up for myself in these certain ways. Then Mercury goes back into Sagittarius, back to 22. And so you'll actually rework your life's purpose and give it a few edits once you've had a conversation with yourself about whether or not it's possible. So the Mercury retrograde is, do I have it in me to do this? Can I be the star? What do I need to promise or commit to myself to be that star? That's what the first Mercury through Capricorn is. And then once you realize what you're committed to doing inside yourself, the sacrifices necessary, the commitments necessary, the promises necessary, then you go back and you go, oh, maybe we don't have to be the best in the world. How about just the US? Or maybe you don't have to get to Mars. Maybe just get to the moon. So I think there's some adjustments, and it can go either way. You may find that once you have a conversation with yourself that you underestimated your potential, or you may have a conversation with yourself where you overestimated, which is what I always do. I always, shoot for Pluto, and I'm like, Jupiter. Like, I didn't realize it's my old era talking. So that's the Mercury in Capricorn. So what's interesting is your seat of power, which is Capricorn here, as you have a conversation with yourself with Mercury, all right, and you have this conversation with yourself with Mercury, and you realize where your self-discipline is, well, then your seat of power can change with Pluto. You realize, oh, if I can be strong in myself over here, well, then I can certainly aim for a higher seat of power up here. So this week, there's a lot of conversation in yourself with the potential for your power and your influence based on how self-disciplined you will be or not be with yourself. So thanks for listening to that. I know it's a lot, but I think it's super important. Looking at the moon this week is a very exhilarating, emotional week. We start off with the moon in Scorpio, which has already begun, if I'm not mistaken. Over the weekend, the moon in Scorpio means that you're going to be drawing emotional boundaries between the two eras and between the two stories. In other words, you're maybe emotionally attached to being the victim. Maybe you're emotionally attached to the highs and lows of adrenaline in your high drama life. And you may go, no, I'm not. I don't want high drama. But, you get on a prairie where nothing's happening and things are sort of just even keel. If you've been used to really high highs and low lows, and you've been riding the waves of high highs and low lows, then you're actually going to have an emotional issue. You're going to have to cope with the emotional change from the old era to the new era. It's not just going to be a light bulb that turns on. In fact, that's a lot of times how people end up staying stuck, is their emotional attachment to the old story. It's not, their mind is on board. Their heart wants the new life, but they're emotionally uncomfortable with the new seat. And this is part of what I'm talking about as far as the reluctant star is concerned. In regard to the reluctant star, you're going to be emotionally reluctant. Yes, I do want to move, but I don't feel like doing it. And that's the emotional reluctance right there. I don't feel like it. Well, you don't feel like it because you're emotionally comfortable with these old cycles. And so you're going to have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. So I think this weekend, as we are committing to the new narrative, we're also committing to the emotional boundaries between the past and the future, and of course, living differently in the present. Then the moon goes into Sagittarius, and that will be the countdown to the new moon. It moves into Sagittarius late Monday, and so you're going to have an emotional review as the moon is climbing up to a new moon status, as the moon is reaching the sun at step 20. You're going to replay all of your beliefs. You might have a lot of philosophical arguments with yourself. You might go back. You might think for a few moments like, oh, I made a mistake. This isn't going to work. And again, that's probably your emotional attachment to the old story. Put it down, with a good ceremony. In fact, we have a great ceremony artisan on our site that will help you with that. But emotionally, you might have to work through those beliefs. And so ultimately that apex is to the new moon at 20 degrees on Tuesday. And then we start to feel out, then what do I feel the future is going to be? If I set these emotional intentions that this is going to be the way it is, then we emotionally play that out for the rest of the week. Then the moon goes into Capricorn and crosses Mercury, which is really funny. So it crosses Mercury as Mercury retrogrades. I love the synergy of the planets, how the moon crosses the Mercury retrograde. And then really Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday with Mercury retrograde, we're sort of feeling through the decisions necessary to make this happen. So you were basically going through the emotional transition from the old era to the new era this week, with the moon going from Scorpio into Capricorn. So that's the moon. Going to Black Moon Lilith this week, she goes from 7 to 8 degrees Virgo. And that it's crazy how she's at 8 degrees Virgo, because she's going to trine Mercury at 8 degrees Capricorn, which means, again, Black Moon Lilith in this space is part of the reluctant star. So there's past life fears of the last time you put yourself out there, how this went horribly wrong. You said something wrong to Queen Elizabeth and that got you in trouble. Or you said something wrong to, your Pharaoh and that got you in trouble. So there's a time probably coming up past lives where you messed up, and you might have fear or unnecessary anxiety come up as you are making these commitments. And particularly triggered by the mind, because Mercury retrograde will be trining Black Moon Lilith at 8 degrees. And really what the fear is, you're afraid of making the decision to be the star. And so you will have to face any fears around committing to be the star you really are, and just face the fear with your heart and your intention to persevere and go through and not around the fear. We'll talk more about that. Moving on to Scorpio, Venus this week in Scorpio, she goes from step 4 to step 12. And what she's doing is helping us open up to the truth of the situation. So the truth is undeniable this week. You will feel it. It'll be palpable. It'll be something you can taste. It'll be something you are, is quite literal, that feeling of truth. So you're basically opening up to the truth of the matter. And that means you're coming to some conclusions. So it's like, well, that means that this is over. And that means that this has begun. And so what we're doing is we're defining concrete lines with Venus in this spectrum from 4 degrees to 12 degrees. This is basically all the concrete lines inside myself that have to be drawn in order to get there, and starting to develop some concrete lines of what my life can or can't be. So you're basically sorting your life into 2 piles: new era, old era, can, cannot, or must not. That's a better word. Can or must not. And so drawing that boundary in yourself and in the outer world. Saturn and Neptune in Pisces this week. Saturn is at 1 degree all week in Pisces. Neptune is at 24 direct in Pisces. In essence, what this is that we're taking responsibility for loving ourselves. So you must be self-loving. Self-love is the energy of ascension. If you do not actively self-love yourself, and you may say, everyone who says to me, oh, I do love myself, I'm like, not enough for ascension. You just loved yourself to survive the dark ages. Now you have to turn up the love even more. We're all going to be like smiling tourists if we're really loving ourselves all the time. So you got to take responsibility for that self-love. You got to love yourself and love yourself some more and love yourself even more. You can't OD on self-love. Okay. You just can't. What happens when your coffers are filled with self-love, you start loving people and giving it away. So the overspill of self-love is you start giving it away. It's a good consequence, right? Neptune at 24 means we are attuning, accepting, and receiving our new destiny, which means we are downloading with Neptune at 24. We're downloading that bucket list from heaven that we intended to do here in the new era. So a lot of amazing awakenings and light bulbs going off. I've been having so many light bulbs going off in the last 4 days, just excited about the future, excited what my next era is, exciting what I'm going to do. It's super exciting because I waited my whole life for it, basically. Moving on to Taurus. Jupiter this week is retrograde still at 6 degrees Taurus. Jupiter at 6 degrees Taurus. That Jupiter is the ruling agent of Sagittarius. Jupiter at 6 degrees retrograde means we're changing the beliefs of what we are worth. So everyone should be getting an inner promotion as far as what they are worth to themselves, not to the world. We will calculate what you're worth to the world later when Jupiter's direct in 2024 and going between 10 and 19 degrees Taurus. This is what you are worth to yourself. And Uranus this week goes from step 20 to Grandmaster step 19. And that's a big deal at 19 because 19 is literally the manifestation degree of the second decan, the master manifestation degree of daily life. And so with Uranus, that means that daily life, once Uranus goes to 19, which is on Monday, that means daily life now has a higher potential, which makes sense. Here's the irony of that. We committed to a new daily life on Sunday, and then on Monday, Uranus is like, okay, let's change the manifestation matrix of daily life. So literally, we commit to the new story on Sunday, and Uranus on Monday says, okay, it's now time to change the blueprints for daily reality. And that's what Uranus and Taurus is basically doing, is elevating the blueprints to a higher dimension of how daily life experiences manifest, 19 being daily life. Super powerful stuff there. And then finally, Chiron in Aries. Chiron in Aries is at step 15. The North Node is at step 23 Aries. We are healing with Chiron and Aries, our relationship to daily life. We're healing literal relationships in daily life. And I have to say, a lot of stories, people's personal relationships are coming to a close. I am getting that from a lot of people. In fact, I heard from Sahara Rose. I had her on a few weeks ago. She texted me this week and was just saying she's hearing about all sorts of trouble in paradise with people's relationships. And I said to her, yeah, it's right now we're coming to the end of a lot of these relationships. And in 2024, just a little prediction, I think the lightworker dating market is going to explode. I wish there was a lightworker dating app out there, because I think all of the lightworkers who've been working on themselves this whole time, stuck in relationships based on the old era, suddenly the availability market of love is going to skyrocket in 2024, probably after Aries or in Aries when the Earth is in Libra, just to make that prediction. So if you're sitting there, upset because you can't find love, that was the old era story. That's not the new era story. So don't fall into that. Let's heal our ability around relationships, says Chiron at 15. The North Node at 23 does say that all this work is pointing to that we are basically creating a new characterization of ourselves. So you could say that everyone's about to go through a wardrobe change or a scene change here. And we're going to be known as a different character in the new era. And that character is basically being formed right now, not in the literal, but in the pre-manifest energy. So we're setting up for that new character. Fun, fascinating stuff. All right, let's take a quick look at the charts, and then we're going to go into the personal horoscopes for all 12 signs. And again, keep streaming for Astro Mingle. We have Chelsea Ray and Brian, the co-creators of the Genius Frequency and Methodology, coming on later tonight. So looking at the charts, the first one real quick here, the sun conjoins Juno or squares Juno. Now, the thing about, here's the sun at 17. What's interesting is as soon as you commit to the new narrative with the sun at 17, you have to make love and make friends with reality. So there's this square means you're going to realize that your life is out of sync. And that's what synergy is. And that's what Juno is, how we synchronize, how we become simpatico, how we partner with at an expert level. Juno's our capability of partnering at an expert level. As soon as you commit to the new story on Sunday, you realize, oh, I've got to partner differently with reality. Here we have some signs of Venus and Black Moon Lilith, which are sextiling. This is the reluctant inner star energy going on here. Something to look at. Saturn at 1 degree, also part of the reluctant inner star. The next big is Venus sextiles Mercury. So on Monday, this is where you start to coordinate with Venus at 8 degrees Scorpio, and Mercury at 8 degrees Capricorn. They sextile, which means you sort of really realize you've got to get your inner discipline in order, and you've got to get your inner boundaries in order. And so come Monday, there is this sort of feeling like, I got to get my shit together, man. I'm a hot mess. And by the way, everyone's a hot mess for the new era. You're not a hot mess in the old era. You finally got your shit together. But as soon as you jump into the new era, we're all a hot mess once again. At least we're hot, right? Then on Tuesday, we have the new moon in Sagittarius. Very powerful. First of all, let's get a hyper look at the new moon. They conjoin at step 20. So this is holding emotional space. 2 is emotion. 0 is space and time. So this new moon is holding emotional space and time for the new era. And it conjoins the galactic center with a 7-degree orb. The orb does characterize the energy that brings the two together, part of my step system. So it's a spiritual intention, Neptune direct, a spiritual intention that creates this new narrative and this new aura, this new era, and aura will happen as well. The galactic center is the promise you made to the rest of the collective before you came down on Earth. So look at that in your chart. We cover that in Truth and Purpose. Notice Mars at 13. At this moment, we are elevating our daily life to the next vibration or next frequency. So this new moon will cause a disruption in daily reality. That's also compounded by Venus at 9 degrees Scorpio, which means it's a new day for ourself. Pallas holding space at Grandmaster Earth 10 degrees. So we're at that moment holding a new space in ourself. White Lilith saying the way to solve this is to commit to the boundaries necessary for life. Really powerful new moon energy here. And from this point on, the new era has begun because this is where you are planting the seeds. Again, we have Joe Zammit, our lunar ceremony artisan, who's providing a ceremony to our subscribers for the best way to actualize and activate this new moon. The next key date, Mercury is retrograde. That happens, of course, at 8 degrees. That's a Grandmaster degree of Capricorn. So Mercury retrograding from a Grandmaster degree means that we are going to completely redesign our inner structure of how we are responsible to ourself. The first 10 degrees of Capricorn is our responsibilities to ourself. So it's time to re-architect that. Mercury will end up at 22 degrees. Interesting about that, right between the sun and the moon at that point. We'll retrograde back to step 22, where we'll station direct on New Year's Day. You can't write this shift. Then the next date is Friday next week when I'm on the air again here with y'all. Mars will trine Chiron. And so this will be a moment where these relationship changes. So if you're wondering if you're going to make it with your current spouse or partner, I would say you'll know by next Friday, December 15th. That's the turning point. If it's going to end, you'll know. If it's going to heal, you'll know. I believe you will know for certainty, even those ones that have been hanging on. And I do believe it's time to move on. I think people have had plenty of enough time, and it is time, unless you have a special agreement and you know it. And then the sun trines the north node. This isn't actually the actual slide. I'm a little off on the time. But late on Friday, the sun will trine the north node at 22 degrees. Oh, no, that's right. It goes to 22. I forgot. The north node goes to 22. You know what? I forgot that because it's late Friday. But that's pretty quantum. The week actually ends with your character and your own self in flux. In other words, anything is possible from next Friday onward. We'll have to have some sort of a cosmic show next Friday because we're going to be in some quantum energy. But the fact that it trines the North Node means that you're not in Kansas anymore and you're not who you used to be anymore. So take a good look at yourself in the mirror. You're going to have a new image about a week from now is what I predict, because you're going to have a new story, because you're going to have a new purpose, because you're going to be on to the new era. Exciting stuff, huh? All right, friends, let's talk about you. Go steep yourself some tea and let's have our weekly tea time. Hello and welcome to Tea Time, my soul horoscope for all 12 signs. This is where every week I get super deep on what's going on with the 12 signs and give you some personal advice and coaching. I do want to also point out that we re-release these horoscopes every Tuesday so you can be reminded about it. Because I know, like, going through the weekend, usually the energy in the beginning of the weekend to the beginning of the week, you just go through a lot. Usually over the weekend, there's a lot of reflection right of our normal life. Mondays are too crazy. You're too busy getting back to work or back to the regime. And then Tuesday, you're like, oh, what was this week's goal again? And that's why we release those on Tuesday. So it does support Serious Joy to come watch it again. So you're helping us also. You're helping us on YouTube. You're helping us with just near numbers. You're helping us as well. So it's a win-win. Come check out your horoscope, your soul horoscope on Tuesdays. They go live. So this week, I'm going to give some coaching for 4 areas of your life for each of the 12 signs. For one, I'm going to talk about where is the birth of the new era happening in your life. Everywhere in your life, that birth is happening one place, okay? And if you just birth it in the place I say today on this soul horoscope, for your sun sign, your rising sign is a consequence of your sun sign. So you must manage it on the sun sign, sun being source. So on the sun sign source, and then do it on your rising sign. If you listen to these horoscopes or more than one horoscope, do sun first, do rising second. And if you want to do the moon, you can, but the moon is more ethereal. It's just emotional. It's where your emotions are. And we all know our emotions are not always where our reality happens to be. So do your moon sign with a grain of salt, but it's still, from what I have witnessed, does tell you a lot about what's going on. Hard for me to tell because my moon and my rising are the same sign. So I just have like a super B story, a super rising story. It just feels amplified and more dramatic. So we'll be telling you, okay, what does the new moon in Sagittarius, what does that mean for a change for you, first and foremost, okay? And then when it trines the North Node at the end of the week at step 22, where is your character going to change as a result of the new era? So where in your life will the character end up changing? Where will there be a transformation of character happening as a result of this new moon intention, of this new story that you are creating? Then I will speak to Mercury retrograde. And where the Mercury retrograde is going to have you reconsider your self-discipline so that you can support the new purpose and you can support the new character. And then lastly, I'll speak to where you're going to have to innovate your life purpose to accommodate your self-discipline stuff. So basically, I'm going to tell you where Mercury is in the beginning and where Mercury is at the stationing direct of the Mercury retrograde. And as always, we'll start with the Aries. Aries, you are literally giving yourself a new life purpose. And I've been joking with the Aries, by the way, because I've said that the dawn of the hero is over. Hero is all age of Pisces. Basically, in the age of Aries, Arieses were conquerors. In the age of Pisces, Aries got a conscience and they became heroes that saved other people because they felt bad for conquering. So in the age of Aquarius, what are y'all? I don't know. You tell me. But you have a new purpose that is now launching. And maybe that's to be your own hero. Maybe that's to push the limits of something. I would imagine that it will be to push the limits of something. Maybe you're going to be the pioneer. Maybe you're going to be the activist, but you're going to be something different. And you have a new purpose happening as a result of this new moon. And this isn't just a new purpose for you. This is a new purpose for the entire Aries race of souls. So I'm very interested to see what comes of it. Because it's in your hands. And with the North Node in your sign, this means a dramatic change of Aries character. Now, I have guided a lot of people, particularly women, but also men, who are dating Aries and are very frustrated because Aries don't seem to change. That's all about to change, just so you know. So you are about to change. So I hope they didn't bet against you. I hope they didn't short your stock, because you are going to bust through whatever that assumption was and have a complete transformation of your character. And this might be, character is the way you behave, the way you respond, what's predictable about you. So this is a major change for the Aries. Now, Mercury retrograde at 8 degrees does say that to make this character change and this purpose change, you will have to change your self-discipline. You have to reprioritize what happens inside yourself. You have to make new commitments to when you will stand up and when you will sit down. And ultimately that means that you're on a career change. A seat of power in your career is going to happen from that change of self-discipline. Now, when Mercury stations direct on New Year's Day, you are going to end up innovating your life purpose even higher. So what I'm basically saying is, yes, set out for your life purpose on this new moon on Tuesday, do that. But realize on New Year's Day, you're going to make some adjustments to that life purpose, because after you have a real conversation with yourself, you're going to realize that you have to make some modifications or take it higher or take it to a new dimension. There could be a dimensional shift where you thought it was this, but it's actually going to be that. All right. So that's for the Aries. Taurus. Tauruses are, okay, this is a complicated one, and I'm a Taurus. Ultimately, your new moon intention is to change your life and to change yourself. So kind of like Aries, Tauruses are about to change their entire life. I can feel that inside of me already, just from what I intend to do in the future and what I know I have planned for 2024. It's a complete change in my life. I've never lived my life the way I'm about to live my life. I'm very excited because I did all my homework and now I'm ready for recess. Okay. But like, there's going to be a life transformation. And really for you, you got to focus on how your life is going to change. And you may go, oh, that's generic. No, because Tauruses don't change. People call me stubborn. I say I'm stable. I'm not stubborn. But the truth of the matter is we change very little. And that's why people get so pissed at us, frankly. But now we are going to change. So by architecting the change, and it's much better to be the architect of your change than to be forced into a cattle pen and forced to change. All right. Shout out to Daryl, by the way, if he's watching. So it is time now to set the intentions for how your life is going to change and transform going forward. Now, with the North Node in Aries, it means that you also have to change your perspective of your spiritual calling, where you feel called in the world. So there's a change of your spiritual calling. There's a change of your relationship to God. If you don't have a strong relationship to God, Taurus, it's time to have hey, Daryl, it's time to have a change in your relationship to God energetically. And that's going to be the handrail you hold on to as you are mooing and booing because you're out of your comfort zone. Okay. But being willing to change yourself. So this is a time, Taurus, just be flexible. We can breathe and get through this. Now, Mercury retrograde means that you're going to have to rewrite your discipline around your belief in yourself. And I actually think what this is for Taurus is to be more disciplined with your belief with yourself. So I think, yeah, I believe this. Yeah, but do you act on it? Do you carry out? Do you use it as your litmus test to what you're doing? So energetically, Mercury in Capricorn means you probably just have to be disciplined about believing in yourself, or change what beliefs go in what order or priorities of belief. So there's a changing of priorities, there's a changing of discipline of what I believe about myself. I believe I can do it. Okay, then act like it. Then think like it, says Mercury. Now, Mercury will retrograde back to 22 degrees, which means that at the end, you're going to have to make some adjustments to your transformation plans. I don't know about y'all, but I, as a Taurus, I'm Aries ruled Taurus, a net 9. So I tend to pull the Band-Aid off a little too fast. And then I'm like, then I freak out. I always want to get it over with. And so I do it too fast. And then I end up having to make adjustments because I went too fast and too far. Same thing when I'm dating. I tend to move them in right away. And it's like, whoa, why don't we date first? So energetically, this is a moment where you might realize that you went a little too far, or maybe you bit off more than you can chew, or maybe you have to make some adjustments. So make your change, but plan to change how you change, basically, Taurus. Gemini. Gemini, you have a new purpose when it comes to long-term partnership and marriage. So if you are single, it means you are making the plans to be non-single. If you are married or in a partnership, it means the partnership is going to the next level. It may also mean you're partnering with someone in business. You might be partnering with someone on a creative project. You might be partnering with someone in a sport, but you are now going to change your purpose of partnership. What is the purpose of partnering? The reason why you partner is going to go to the new era. There's a new era of why Geminis partner with others. And I know one Gemini right now, I don't think she's watching, but she's wondering why she can't find love. This is why. And the letter is P if she's listening. That's all I'm going to say. This is why, P. You had to upgrade the purpose of partnership in the first place. Now, with the North Node in Aries, it does mean that there is a new vision for who you end up in society as a result of this change of partnership. All right. So you will have a new reason for being out in the public, or a new purpose in the public, or a new role in the public. So your public role ends up changing by changing your purpose of partnership. Mercury retrograde says you're going to have to rewrite your responsibilities around your boundaries with yourself. So you've gotten a little too comfortable. You know, Geminis really don't change their boundaries with themselves. They're very good. My Gemini son told me no the first time he could speak. It was no, or shaking his head. Like he was drawing his boundaries from the moment he came out of his mother's womb. Like it was pretty amazing. Geminis are very fixed on what they will or won't do. And what God is saying is you're going to have to change those boundaries with yourself in order to really make this, partnership change, or this change in society, that you got to open up to cold showers, or you got to open up to, something inside yourself, that you're being a reluctant star about that. You're reluctant to take responsibility with the boundaries. Now, when Mercury stations direct on January 1st, you're going to then be looking to innovate partnerships and make tweaks to those partnerships. And I'm guessing that your desire to make changes to the purpose of the partnership is probably because you either hit a wall with your personal boundaries, like, no way, I'm not doing it. No. Okay. Then I guess we can't go down the aisle if you're not going to do it. Or you start changing your trust and you're like, oh, I underestimated myself. I'm much more flexible than I thought. No, baby, we can go the distance. So I think, there could be a transformation in how far that partnership can go once you sort of finesse the boundaries in yourself that are being the reluctant star. Cancers. Cancers are changing their purpose of daily life. So this is what is your life about? And, a lot of Cancers I know, their life is about taking care of other people. And just like heroes are out of business, Aries is the energy of career for Cancers. Cancers have been unsung heroes And I think that that is also no longer available in the new era. I don't think Cancers can be the hero anymore. I always see Cancers as sort of like that Florence Nightingale nurse that saves the soldier. Cancers are really aligned to that Aries energy of being like a matriarchal hero to the world. And I think the matriarchal hero is over. That's not the lifestyle they're going to live anymore. I think Cancers are now going to have a different purpose in their daily life than they once did in the new era. So it's going to be interesting about how that happens. Now interesting that North Node in Aries means as a result, you're going to innovate your career and your legacy now that you change the purpose of daily life. So there'll be a change of where your career legacy is going. That is the Aries energy, which means you're no longer the matriarchal hero. By the way, even if you're a man, you're still the matriarchal hero. Just so you know, it goes both ways. Some signs have certain energies. So I think Cancers have a new purpose in daily life and therefore a new outcome in career. And I don't think Cancers pretty much know what that is. So just so you know, Cancers, I haven't met a Cancer yet that really knows, or I have met Cancers who know, but they've been reluctant or stalling. Like they know, but they have not picked up a pencil to do it for whatever reason. Maybe you're waiting for this new moon. Now, Mercury retrograde means you're going to have to just approach yourself differently in your relationship to yourself rather. Your relationship to yourself has to change. Your commitment to yourself has to change if you're going to change your lifestyle. So a lot of times Cancers, it's really funny. You're very committed to being that hero to others, but are you very committed to being a hero to yourself? So your commitments to yourself have to upgrade and be rewritten. And Mercury stationing direct means that once you change the commitments to yourself, then you might actually modify that lifestyle a little bit and where you go with that lifestyle as a result of changing those commitments to yourself, which is going to be great. Leos. Oh, I'm so excited for Leos and Leo risings. Leos, I'm just waiting. There we go. I was waiting for the graphic to change. Sometimes I wait for the graphic so I know the clip will be good. Leos are changing their purpose of their personal dreams. So Leos have always been dreamers. They never had a problem with dreaming. Every Leo I know has some sort of a dream. And it's always, you know, when I meet a little kid who's a Leo and they're like, I'm going to be the next this. And I'm like, Leo, they just know right from the moment that their heart knows. Now I have a Leo rising, so I speak fluent Leo, meow. But the point is that whatever your dream was, there's a new dream. So Leos have a new dream in the new era. They have a new dream in the new era that they didn't have before. It may have been a dream that you just didn't get to yet. So it might not be brand new. It might just be now up to bat. Like it's finally time for that dream to happen. So I don't want you to think that your dreams are wrong per se, but it is time. It is going to be different than the last dream in the last era. All right. So Leos have a new personal dream that's launching. And I know that's true. In my case, as a Leo rising, I always knew the dream. I just hadn't gotten to it yet. I had too many other things to do in the old era. Now, this means that you will have a change in the way you characterize your life purpose. It's not just a new dream. It's that you have now an updated purpose. And that updated purpose is probably a consequence of what you see around you. So if you had a dream, let's say when you were a kid, to be a rock and roll artist, your purpose might have been then to be famous. And now your purpose might be to heal the world because we're in the new era. So the purpose for your personal dreams is probably upgrading according to the new era principles, you know, and that's just in that nature of you moving from the old era to the new era. Mercury retrograde in Capricorn means Leos have got to change their personal health. So personal health is not in the right space energy for you to achieve your personal dreams. And the thing about Leos is they tend to be a little extravagant. They got that king queen energy in them. You know, King Louis the 13th, you know, ate too much or whatever. It's like, you've really got to change your discipline with your health, your discipline with your sleep, your discipline with your work ethic, your discipline with your play ethic. You know, Leos tend to play hard and work hard. And I just don't think that's going to work in the new era. And unfortunately, I'm talking to myself here with a Leo rising. What will happen once Mercury stations direct is that you will then innovate your personal dreams once you realize how on board your health is. And if you really focus on your health starting this Wednesday with Mercury retrograde, you can bring your health to an amazing place because your seat of power of what's possible in your lifestyle is directly proportional to your own personal health. So once you have a greater paradigm, and by the way, health is, do you live in stress every day? Do you live in misery every day? Do you live in sadness every day? That's personal health. That's personal health gene is what that is. So that also counts as not just the body and your blood pressure, it's also your moods and your emotions. So you're going to do a rewrite to your personal dreams on New Year's Day. Virgos. Virgos are changing the purpose of their emotional home and foundation, the purpose for family, the purpose for where they live, the purpose for how they live. This is the home they live in. This could also be the people you live with, the roommates or whatever. So you are planting yourself. I got to be careful with those air quotes. You are planting yourself according to a new purpose. You are homebodying according to new purpose. And this might be after COVID, no longer working at home, going back into the workspace. It might be that you need to change things around, change the feng shui of your energy of your home. But it ultimately means that you're going to come from a good home now, whereas before you haven't come from a good home. Got to be careful with the air quotes, man. So funny. Now, this means with the North Node in Aries that you will inevitably change your whole life as a result. Your life changes are going to be recharacterized into a new perspective as a result of changing your home, family, and foundation. So you have to change your boundaries. You might have to open up to something that you weren't priorly opening up to. You might have to close down to something that you really like, but just doesn't fit into the new picture. Mercury retrograde means that for this to happen, you have to become disciplined about self-love. Disciplined about self-love. And self-love is not getting a massage. It's not necessarily buying yourself nice clothes. Self-love is not outside of yourself. Self-love is inside of yourself. So it's how your mind responds to yourself. It's what you do for yourself when you're hurt. It's what you do for yourself when you're happy. It's how you treat yourself, particularly mentally, or around your heart. So you have to treat your heart differently, particularly treat it differently with your mind. Your mind has to reply differently to your heart's needs. Now, when Mercury stations direct on New Year's Day, you're going to then make some adjustments and innovate your home or family to a higher level. So once you have a conversation about loving yourself more, you'll probably give yourself more in the home or more in the family or more in the emotional foundation to reach that self-love potential. Libras. Libras are changing the long-term narrative and purpose of their attitude. So their mind is going to have a new purpose. Their mind's going to work out, the math necessary to go back to the moon, or their mind is going to work out a new novel that tells their life story, or their mind's going to write a tell-all about all the relationships they've been in. Your mind will have a new purpose. And this new purpose in your mind and what you're going to do with your mind will lead to changes in your partnerships. So FYI, Libras and Aries are in dramatic partnership changes right now with the South Node in Libra and the North Node in Aries. You are leaving behind old ego attachments, Libra, where you were stubborn and insistent on getting your way by making them think they get their way. I know how you work. You're like, yes, let's do it your way, which is really what I wanted the whole time. That's Libras. That's how they work. You're going to change that old ego structure and you're going to adopt a new ego structure so that you can have the partnerships that you really enjoy and that you really deserve. If you're in an existing relationship that's working really well, then it's going to take you to a higher level. That partnership is going to go to a higher level if you have a good relationship in that regard. Now, the Mercury in Capricorn means you're going to have to be more disciplined about your feelings about yourself. All right. So the way you feel about yourself, the way you think about your feelings, they can't be the way they were. All right. They have to change now. If you think differently about how you feel about yourself and become disciplined about not sitting in dirty diapers, change those dirty emotional diapers. Don't sit in that sort of emotional waste. Instead, clear your emotional field to neutrality and take responsibility for staying in the neutral feelings. Libras can get really stressed out and really worried. And because it's in their head, they don't pay attention that it's affecting their emotional field. Now, when Mercury stations direct, you're probably going to change your attitude or your official plans once you've taken responsibility for how you feel. So make your plans, but plan to change your plans is what Mercury is saying for the Libras. Scorpios. Scorpios are changing the purpose of their abundance and their passive income. So you are changing the reason why you want to make money, the reason why you want to make widgets, the reason why, and the story behind why you want to be successful. And I think that you could say it's the motives for your money, and whatever your motives for richness or wealth or success was, those motives are now changing. I actually think those motives are based on Saturn, which I'm not speaking to today, but I will for you. I think those motives are changing based on loving yourself in a way you've never loved yourself before. So now that you're loving yourself, money maybe not be to prove yourself. Maybe money is to enjoy your life or some other reasons. So the purpose for making money and making wealth and passive income is changing with this new moon on Tuesday. With the North Node in Aries, this means this will also result in a lifestyle change. So I am predicting for Scorpios, there's a high chance of having to relocate as a means of a job change or change the way you work. If you're working at home, you might have to work now in the office. There's going to be some sort of lifestyle change as a consequence of changing your structure for manifesting money and manifesting abundance. Mercury in Capricorn retrograde means you have to change how you are disciplined around thinking about yourself. So the way you think about yourself has a certain discipline to it. And I'm sure that discipline had rhyme and reason. But now if you're going to go for money in a new way, if you're going to change the purpose for the money, if you're going to change the way you live your life, it looks like your mind is in the way you think about yourself, literally what you say to yourself when something happens, this needs to change. You need to change the attitude you have with yourself has to change. And then when Mercury stations direct, which will be on New Year's Day, you'll probably make some modifications to that business plan for making money. Now that you're thinking differently about yourself, you might actually raise the bar and go for even more in your financial investments. And I find Scorpios are a little conservative when it comes to taking financial risk. Even though they can see it, they tend to play it safe. And maybe when you remove that mental chatter, you take a gamble on something. Don't risk your life, but risk what you can afford to risk. Sagittarius, happy birthday, Sages. This is a fascinating time. Sages are about to change their character and their action plan. So I always say, kiss your Sag. They're about to leave. They quite often do this every now and then where they just hop ship and they go off to another country, to another world, and they have a whole new social life that they become instantly connected to. That can be within a company, that can be within the actual world, that could be on the world, that could be among friendships. But Sagittarius are coming into a new character, a new reason for their behavior, a new reason to be who they are. So they're coming up with a purpose for who they are and a purpose for why they act the way they act. And they're sort of owning it. And it could have been that you've always been reluctant about something, Sag, and now you're finally believing in it and going forward with it. That could be the case. Absolutely. But this change of character and action plan with the North Node in Aries leads to true love or personal dreams, or a change of what you want for true love or personal dreams. So for this reason, this is a strong sign that Sagittarius could be breaking up or hooking up for long term. Okay, so let's hang out for the rest of our life, that sort of thing. I predict that if Sages, with this new character and this new personal dream and love path, Sages are going to light up, and they might also, hook up, not in that sense, but in a long-term sense, right, with someone else, and really be on the path of their personal dreams. It could also mean that you're giving yourself permission to do what your heart really wants to do for the first time in your life. Like you've never given yourself permission, and now this new purpose is you're going to give yourself permission. What you're going to have to rethink is your self-worth. So your reluctant star is going to be wondering, do I really have it in me? Do I really believe in myself enough? Do I really give myself the credit I deserve? So you got to really think about making new decisions about giving yourself the credit you deserve, and your mind taking credit for what you deserve as well. So a new conversation with self-credit. And then when Mercury stations direct, you're going to be taking those character changes a little to a different degree. So you're probably going to transform how you see your character a little bit more once you give yourself the credit you deserve. Capricorns are changing a new purpose with God. Yeah, that's a biggie, huh? So I don't know if this is you finding God for the first time, redefining God, redefining your spiritual purpose on the planet, becoming suddenly a humanitarian or becoming a philanthropist. I don't know. But you're going to change your purpose with God. Whatever your purpose was with God, there's a new purpose now. So there's a new connection. This might just be you ascending. This might just be you going, with the rest of us, just pioneering, the pathway to God, like all of us are in this new era. But you are now creating a new purpose with God and your relationship to God, which would be the angels, the ascended masters, extra dimensionals, the whole 9 yards, by the way. Now, with the North Node in Aries, this means that you have to innovate your emotional foundation so that you can go higher with God. So you're going to have to create a new emotional foundation to be able to have that closer relationship to God, or to be able to go to those extra dimensions, or to go to the ascension. So you've got to ground yourself. You've got to live differently. You've got to treat your feelings in a different way if you're going to ascend to a higher vibration of spiritual frequency. Mercury in your sign means that you're going to rethink your responses to yourself, the way you think of yourself, the way your mind responds to yourself. And I think this is also for you, the graduation of Pluto in Capricorn. Pluto's been in Capricorn for 15 years. It will dip back in again next year from September to November, but that's just going to be a final test. That's not going to be a real change, I don't believe. So you really are sort of thinking about yourself now that Pluto is leaving your sign. So this is the goodbye, Pluto. Don't let the door hit you on the way out conversation with yourself, I think. And Pluto at the top degrees of Capricorn, helping you put the final touches to your character and your ego's ambitions. Now, when Mercury stations direct, once you start treating yourself a little differently, probably with compassion and patience and unconditional love, you're probably going to also realize that your relationship to God is still changing, and it will always change. But this is a fundamental new era for how Capricorn is spiritual or connected. Good to see Joe Zaman in the chat room. Hello, Joe. All right, that goes on to the Aquariuses. Aquarius, you are changing your purpose in society. And I think this is not a surprise, as you know, we can't have the age of Aquarius without Aquariuses. Aquariuses are currently hiding in little extra dimensional closets somewhere. They're not coming out and sharing their gifts. And now I think your social ambition is going to change. You're going to find that whatever you were going for in society is going to change now, or you're going to add things to it, add features to it. So you're going to ultimately be re-architecting why you want to be who you are in the world, or maybe coming out of the closet and finally admitting what you've always wanted to believe, but now the world just feels safe. With the North Node in Aries, that means you have to have a major change of your attitude. Your current attitude in your mind is based on the old era. And that was based on being the weird one, or the strange one, or the one who's rejected. So you're going to have to really change the way you think about life, your attitude on life, your attitude about others. You've got to shake off the old era and the karma and get your mind on the new goal for you to succeed. Because your mind is very powerful, Aquarius, and very stubborn. It's Aries there. Okay, so it's got to shift a little bit. The Mercury retrograde means there's going to be a new discipline about having faith in yourself. And discipline around faith in yourself means that if your mind has faith, then shut up, do it, get out there, make yourself known. Don't be reluctant. If you have faith in yourself, then show me that you have faith in yourself. So I think if you backed Aquariuses into a corner, they would say, yeah, I have faith in myself. But if you caught them alone at a bus stop, they're not always acting like it. So I think the Mercury retrograde is to really think about particularly your mind having faith in yourself. Your heart might have faith in yourself. Your ego may have faith in yourself. Your mind might be your biggest critic. So your mind has got to get on the side of having faith in yourself in this retrograde. Now, when Mercury stations direct, that means that once you have this new faith in yourself that you've worked through, you're then going to make some changes to your social ambition. So you'll see a direct correlation between your faith in yourself and your mission in the public. And then the Pisces. Pisces, you are changing the purpose of your career and legacy. So Pisces are about to reinvent themselves as far as career legacy is concerned. There's a new story of who Pisces are. I know it's been a lot of very messy and non-linear up until now, but you are really onto the career you were born to have. And you may feel very tired, by the way, and that's a good indicator that you're right where you need to be. I find that we really are about the place where we need to be. We're a little worn out and tired from the journey to get there. So in essence, you are creating the legacy that you've always wanted in your heart. It's time to create the purpose. And this is probably very responsive to the needs of this time. I wouldn't be surprised that you are looking at the world's needs and you're finding yourself as a solution to those needs. With the North Node in Aries, you've got to change your actions and your attitude around wealth and abundance. So you have to really redefine what you go for as far as money is concerned, what level of money you go for. I would say go for it, Aries. Go for the money. The worst they can say is no, right? And I know Pisces have always had a lot of issues with money, but that's not going to be the case in the future. So don't worry about that. Mercury retrograde means that for you to pull this off, you have to be a good friend to yourself. You've really got to think of yourself differently. You've really got to be your own friend in a way that no one else would be able to be your friend. Because you're going to be a spiritual influencer to some degree, no one's going to understand what you need. In fact, it's time to really become friends with God more than you ever have, which is definitely showing in the chart. By the way, that's the next phase of Pluto Aquarius, that you and God become besties. Because if you're going to be a true leader of spiritual ascension or anything that's compassionate, you're going to have to be your own best friend, not your own critic. So you can no longer be critical to yourself about who you are in public. You can no be critical of yourself when the public doesn't necessarily like you. In fact, you are both fish. If they're hating you, you are succeeding. If they're loving you, you are succeeding because you are stirring the pot, which is part of what Pisces do. Now, when Mercury stations direct on New Year's Day, you're probably going to innovate your career plans a little bit. So go ahead and make those plans for your career, but realize come January 1st, there'll be some innovations to it. You might take it higher. You might shift perspectives or go at it from another dimension. So give yourself the entire Capricorn season, basically, to Capricorn season to make modifications to your career, which is Sagittarius. So probably won't be till January 20th that you're super clear on where a career is meant to go. All right. And those are the soul horoscopes for all 12 signs. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate your wonderful chat. We're going to take a brief intermission here and come back with Astro Mingle. We'll be gone for about 3 minutes. But when we come back, I'm super excited here to have the creators of the Genius Frequency methodologies, Dr. Chelsea Ray and Brian. Keep streaming. This zodiac weather is from Saturday, December 9th to Friday, December 15th, 2023. Looking ahead at your weekend forecast, this weekend you wrap up the details of how your daily life is going to change, and then on Sunday you put that change into motion. Let's drill down. On Saturday, it's sunny and self-loving. It's also Love Fest Day, the most loving day of the month. Tell everyone you love that you love them. Step 17 means Saturn rules the day, and you are committing now to the new narrative and the life you want to live. And with Venus opposing Jupiter, you're also feeling a promotion of self-worth. On Sunday, it's sunny and focused. Step 18 indicates Mars rules the day. This is the day to take the first step and activate the new narrative. You're also feeling boundaries for the changes of manifestation and production with the moon in Scorpio, making this step feel very important. Looking ahead at the 5-day mood forecast for the week, over the course of the week, you'll put the finishing touches on transforming your daily life, and a new moon in Sagittarius holds emotional space for a changed destiny. On Monday, it's sunny and determined. Step 19 indicates Earth rules the day. You are now manifesting the new narrative, which means you're holding love and protecting all the changes you've made. With Mercury sextiling Venus, you're also coming in alignment with your inner self, and the moon shifts into Sagittarius, so you begin to emotionally review all the belief changes you've had so far in Sagittarius. On Tuesday, it's sunny and passionate. Step 20 means the moon rules the day, and just in time for the new moon in Sagittarius. You are holding emotional space for the future and holding space for a change in your destiny. On Wednesday, it's sunny and swift. Step 21 means it's starting to get fun. Jupiter rules the day, and this is the final Grandmaster step of the Sagittarius season. You are writing the new narrative, and just in time, Mercury goes retrograde and will remain retrograde till January 1st. On Thursday, it's snowing with a chance of lightning. Step 22 means Uranus rules the day. Expect the unexpected. You're taking your new story even higher and probably opening up to new dimensions. And with the moon in Capricorn, you're feeling this change as quite serious. And then on Friday, it's sunny and empowered. Step 23 means Mercury retrograde now rules the day. This is the day where your plot for the future will be clarified. You'll be coming to some new conclusions. And with Mars trining Chiron, you're also coming to realize that a relationship in daily life might be healing. And with the Sun trining the North Node in Aries, you're realizing that you are birthing a new character.
For the best astrology guidance, you can enjoy an entire month of personalized astrology services for just $3.99. At Serious Joy, we pride ourselves on providing astrology enthusiasts with exactly what they're looking for. Daily personalized inspiration that speaks directly to the heart. Sign up today and you'll receive personalized messages straight to your phone 7 days a week. And that's just half of it. You'll also get access to our exclusive members-only site with tons of amazing features. Experience the most accurate astrology service on the web at SeriousJoy.com.
Welcome to Astro Mingle. This is our show where we like to mingle with talented light workers and innovative influencers of our time. We're always interested in exploring the mysteries of the body, health, and magic of spiritual incarnation. And today's guests are pioneers of personal healing. Doctors Brian Thomas and Chelsea Ray Lumb have guided thousands of clients to not only heal, but become whole by realizing who they are beyond the traumas that have happened to them and bring their gifts to the world. With over 35 years of experience, they innovated and channeled genius frequency methodologies by uniting indigenous wisdoms with embodiment technologies. And we're going to find out what that means tonight. Chelsea Ray helps you magnetize miracles like an antenna to the brilliance living in your bones, having overcome cancer, autoimmune disease, and debilitating chronic fatigue using their work. She knows how to transform pain, dis-ease, and struggle into ecstasy, power, and knowing. Brian has been a lifelong creator with the brain of an engineer and the heart of a musician. He's a maverick tuner of the human body as an instrument of consciousness and home to spirit. He provided care for Tony Robbins for nearly a decade, sex expert Jaya, along with industry leaders. Together, Brian and Chelsea Ray give leaders and entrepreneurs the tools to embody their genius, and that's a capital G on genius, and create the life of their dreams and actually enjoy it. That's an important part. So please send waves of love and gratitude to welcome my guest tonight, Step 8 Virgo, Dr. Chelsea Ray Lumb, and Step 11 Virgo, Dr. Brian Lumb. Hello and welcome.
Hey,
Thank you.
thanks so much.
Thank you for coming tonight. And I've actually had the privilege of being on your table. So this is a joy for me too, just in the arc of how things have changed since then. So I know personally the power of y'all's touch, and I think that's probably changed and evolved. We'll talk about that.
Yeah.
But first of all, I was saying this backstage too, you two are a really unique team of light. And it reminds me of sort of like the Curies or like Einstein and his wife, who's a mathematician. Like every now and then you get these magic couples who like download genius stuff, and they couldn't have done it alone by themselves. It's almost like a match made in heaven. How did the two of you come together as a team? Did it start as a working relationship in the beginning?
Oh, I'm gonna cry.
Yeah, I think you're crushing her. So I think in all due respect for the actual story, and by the way, Christopher, we've never shared this little tidbit about our history.
Cool.
And I'll show, yeah, this is breaking news. The short of it is, when I was 20, I went to a Grateful Dead show, my first, on New Year's Eve, took way too many mushrooms for the first time, went somewhere, and came back and had a significant pivot in my life. Fast forward 30 years, and I woke up almost like the movie, the scene where the character like wakes up in like a cold sweat kind of thing, and is like, has this like realization of like, holy, as you like to say, shift. And I realized that when I went out, I was basically connecting with her soul and kind of like going, help, like, please come in now. And that was in December, and that was like December 31st, and she was born like
10 months later.
10 months later.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So at a Grateful Dead concert, let me get this
Right.
straight. You summoned her from heaven.
Pretty much. Pretty much. And I wouldn't be surprised if she was part of my angelic team, kind of keeping me alive, because I was a little bit of a hazard for my first 20 years. Yeah, but then
healers are, all healers have that story, I find.
Oh, totally.
They first like
Yeah.
sabotage with their healing energy, and then they turn that healing energy around. It's very
Totally.
Chiron, as we say. Yeah.
Yeah, I was an archetypal hot mess. So then I was about to adopt and home birth my son, and was calling in another practitioner to get help for the practice. And basically throughout several lines, and had 3 people in very short time period say like, hey, do you know Chelsea Ray? Hey, do you know Chelsea Ray? Hey, do you know Chelsea Ray? I was like, I do.
Apparently I need to. Yeah.
Apparently.
So we met later as colleagues.
Yeah.
As colleagues. And then people mentioned me
Yes.
as someone who might be able to join forces with you in the practice.
A good fit.
Yeah.
And then a whole bunch, when my son arrived, basically a whole bunch of things kind of what I call the great falling apart of several aspects of my life. And then I ended up leaving an organization that I was, doing a lot of work with in terms of my professional life. And then ended up leaving my marriage. And then, a year later, we realized that we were accidentally falling in love, and that began.
And meanwhile, I had visions of Asheville, where we live now. I remember seeing it on a map and not even knowing that Asheville was a town, but seeing I'm going to be here. And I knew it. And I knew I'd practice with someone else who was like more experienced than me. Because if I was going to do this energy work stuff, like I needed to be good. Like I needed to not mess around. I was feeling very determined. And it was actually like such a dream when Brian reached out to me to work together.
Yeah.
And then in that fast forward, he talked about a year, we sort of realized, I like to say, if you're familiar with like the chakra system or something.
Yep.
Our love was like from here up. Like, it was like, we had great connection. We could talk forever. I just thought he was like such a stand up man. And I remember thinking like, I really hope that who I end up with is like Brian.
Yeah.
Like, oh no, I accepted that he was the real deal. And that was really not the plan. And that was really, you know how it goes when something isn't, it's like exactly what you asked for. But then at the same time, I had all these deal breakers and things that the reasons why this didn't work. Yeah. Reasons why this wouldn't work. This didn't match my list of things that I wanted. And it was very risky.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was very risky.
And so there was that, like, on both of our ends, we had such a very easy collaborative professional relationship. And I was, meanwhile, out of a very long relationship and kind of starting to like get around, there will be a point in the future where I'm going to want to get back into a relationship. And so I just really was kind of in a conversation with God of like, okay, well, show me the qualities, help me know what I don't know about what I desire. And I kind of started, seeing all these qualities in Chelsea Ray. And I was like, I think I have the model here. I mean, obviously she would never work for me, but I think I have like this model of like who I would look for. So I started kind of seeing her in that way, but it was definitely like, I mean, this could never work for a million reasons. And then
Virgo.
Yeah. And then it all kind of started.
It all did.
Yeah.
You got over whatever that reluctance was. I'm just joking with our astrology community about Virgos. I mean, we're just talking about how the love story is so precise, and you're very controlled around your love stories, and, tell God your plans. Right. And
right. Totally.
Yeah, totally. That's amazing. So, and I do the same thing, brother, like in the sense of, a woman come in my life, I'm like, oh, that's the archetype. And then it's like, oh, I ended up dating her. Like, so I play those games also. I've done the same thing.
Right.
And it turned out good. That's a good thing, by the way.
Yes, it did.
So at some point you just realize like, this is more than what it appears to be. You let your hearts take over, put your minds aside.
Yeah.
And there's probably a lot of like creative genius in that love. Like, I think having a love story and being creative opens up for creative genius, because there's so much love between the two creators.
That is
did you
when,
find your
like,
creativity go up once you were together, I guess is the question.
Totally.
it went like this. It was like the methodology, genius frequency started like exponential
Yeah.
at that point. And I didn't put it together at the time.
Yeah. And
retrospectively, like, yes.
it's funny because I mean, for the first time, I hired like a coach to work with me, and because I was wanting to like move my business into new areas and explore some different things. And I had finally gotten to the point where I was just like, I need to get some help with this. And this particular individual was like, you know, you can pretty much create whatever you want. Like tell me some of your ideas of, you know, like just like, let's just kind of like spitball some things that you have. And I was like, I have literally no ideas. And he was like, come on, you have something. I was like, no, I don't. I really like, it's just not part of how I operate. He was like, are you open to having ideas? And I was like, yeah, I mean, I'm open, but like, don't you think if I was open, they would like start to,
they would come. Yeah,
they would come. And, you know, he basically talked me into the notion that I could be creative in this way. And, you know, around that time, our business relationship was really starting to take a stride. And retrospectively, when I look at the, you know, the 5-6 years that we've been kind of unfolding genius frequency, it's become clear that like I'm a really good translator of energy and information, and Chelsea Ray is like the holder and keeper, like the crystal of that. And so as much as it could be easy for me to think along the way, like, oh yeah, I tuned in and channeled this. It's like, I would have never done it without her. Like I could have never done it without her. I never had the access to that energy and information without her. And so it's been this very interesting, unique collaboration where, you know, it just information kind of comes in these waves and little chunks, and then we work with it, and then all of a sudden it kind of a clarity emerges, and then it's like, oh, this is the next piece. Like it's so obvious, and that's just been the way that it's gone and grown.
Yeah, and I mean, as we introduced you, you're both Virgos born days apart, literally.
Yeah.
So it's like, I guess the office is closed that week, but like, an 8-degree Virgo, which is what she is a sort of the deciding factor, the yes, no, you're in, you're out, you're in, you're out. And an 11-degree Virgo is a grandmaster Virgo, by the way, who has the born right to change reality, sort of a Metatron energy. And 11 is how it all comes together. So 8 and 11 in the energy of in the astrology is the one who sort of commits to what goes in and what doesn't, and the 11 holds the space for the entire shape.
Wow.
It's a very powerful duo, by the way, for any other 8 and 11s out there. You both started as chiropractors, and it's funny because chiropractor was like the hot thing in the 70s. My parents took me there to like get rid of my asthma, like, but you naturally evolved out of it, it seems like, right? Are you still using chiropractic? What were the benefits of chiropractor, you know, skills, and how did you want more? What made you want to take it further?
Yeah, I mean, we both kind of entered into chiropractic from similar threads. I mean, I knew I was going to be a chiropractor. I proclaimed I wanted to be a chiropractor when I was like 9 years old. I was like, I'm going to be a chiropractor. And then, you know, but that was in the 70s. Yeah.
And when I was like
Yeah.
a teenager, I saw a vision of me being a guide for people's health. And I always knew I would be a guide. And I was like, but I'm not going to be like a doctor like the ones I see. I'm going to like help people remember the power they already have of the body. And I knew that as a kid. And so I think for both of us having those same, it was like those values were in us as children. And then, so chiropractic was kind of like an obvious trajectory.
Yeah.
And then we learned a special work on top of that that's more energetic.
Yeah.
And then our work branched off of that, and the downloads of genius frequency like accumulated on top until we were like, whoa, like this is actually different now. This is actually its own thing.
Yeah. And I also, you know, I grew up, you know, you mentioned like you grew up with the parents are like, we're going to go to the chiropractor for your asthma. Like those were my parents too. Like I
really?
had, yeah. I mean,
as they're passing a joint.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because like you would think that my parents were like super freaky hippies from the 70s, but like my dad worked at NASA. My mom was a music teacher, and they both grew up in Midwest. I mean, pretty close to where Chelsea Ray actually grew up. So we both have this like Midwestern roots. And so my parents moved when they were very young to Northern California, and got into, like, all my dad's friends were chiropractors. And they got into all the weird stuff. Like, you know, I received Reiki from Takata, who brought the United States when I was 7 years old. Like, that was like my first introduction to like healing. And so, you know, to me, it wasn't weird that I decided I want to be a chiropractor, because my parents were steeped in weird. But then I also started to get the feedback that, like, you don't want to be a chiropractor, they're quacks, from like, you know, friends, parents, and teachers and stuff like that. So I was like, all right, I'm going to be a dentist, until I got in college. And by the time I got into college, like, chiropractors were cool, and they were on lists of, like, you know, things you want to be. If you can't be an NBA, you know, basketball star, you could be a chiropractor. So then I kind of fell back in it, but I also didn't want to be weird like my parents. So I kind of went like a straight-laced version of chiropractic, but then fell back into weird again, which was just like, you know, I realized I'm cut of the cloth of weird. And so, you know, but now, like, you know, weird for us is just like this is what is happening now on the planet. Like, everything that we have been prepared for is like, now this is like the time.
What used to make us all weird now makes us leaders of the
and cool.
Totally.
Yeah. Like, weird is cool.
Weird is cool.
Yeah.
So it sounds like from chiropractic. So, I mean, step 11 is all about alignment. Step 8 is all about getting your shift in order too. So it's like, it sounds like chiropractic was, you were working on the body, which is the embodiment of the soul. Yes. And then at some point you were kind of like, okay, we keep refixing stuff that keeps getting messed up again. And all of a sudden, suddenly that Reiki energy healing at age 7, which by the way is the age of spirituality, suddenly you're kind of like, oh, maybe we should look at the energy before the embodiment. And you want to kind of go to the source of the problem instead of just constantly fixing the problem. That's what it sounds like.
That's exactly what I was about to speak to.
Yeah.
Yes. I had the very unanswered question of like, okay, this feels good, but like, why does this keep happening? And why do I keep needing this? Like, what caused this? And the energetic work that we learned then dealt more with the cause, and more with the way that the person responds to life, that makes us like kink up and like contract forever until we unwind. You know, it helps that unwinding process, which then liberates the energy, liberates the spine, liberates the person. And as far as like the difference between that and what we're doing now, what is different now is that work was very difficult to apply to each person. You kind of had to be a psychic. It worked with some people. It didn't work with other people. It was not terribly consistent. And there was this really long process to like figuring out a client and providing results for them.
Yeah.
And so the big breakthroughs that Brian like received, that he downloaded, helped us realize like there's a recipe for each person. Like, it is not that much of a mystery. And also with the other things, what works is not necessarily what's best for the person. Sometimes what works and what creates an immediate result is like the repetition of their trauma responses or like their old patterns. But what we've found is like each person has a recipe, and now we can find where are they at in their recipe. Okay, this is not where they ideally could be. So let's unwind that trauma response, get them whole. And then they move from alignment and they experience safety in their body and wholeness and home in their skin like they've never had before.
Interesting. So what I hear you saying is that people are creative in the way they manifest the issues in their body. So that's part of the creative process, is the way it presents. Yeah. And so you found yourself saying, hey, this little karate move on the back is not going to, this person resisting it and this other person is liking it or whatever. And so you found that it was too complex. In others, like one size does not fit all.
Right.
In essence. Got you.
Yeah.
Right.
Let me ask you, especially now, you probably heard in the show earlier that according to astrology, we're upon a major era shift right now, energetically. And obviously it sounds like you guys are already in the new era and been waiting for the world to catch up to you. What sort of themes are you seeing coming into your practice right now, as far as what people are suffering in their bodies and in their soul? I know that's a broad question, but maybe some come to mind.
Yeah. Well, I think, there's a lot of, I love the way that you're viewing life through the lens of kind of the architecture of the cosmos and where everything is moving. And in each one of, depending on where the planets are, where everything is, it creates a certain frequency of experiencing, and that's changing day by day. And ultimately, when we look at the physical body, we're looking at when a person is born, and we're actually utilizing, which I would have never, ever guessed that we would, be utilizing this, but we're basically using a West African cosmology where they look at 5 elements that cycle through every 5 years, and we will spend a year steeping in a particular element. And that element, from our perspective, when you're in the womb, you're basically steeping in that element. And the only reason that ever came across was I was studying a particular gentleman, Malidoma Patrice Sommet, who brought over the wisdom of the Dagara people and started teaching it to Westerners. And this was part of it. And I'd learned about this elemental, and I started to see this overlay of what I was doing in the more energetic chiropractic that I'd learned and I was actually teaching. And I saw that there was this correlation of people who had, they basically had this thing where, if people have a certain operating system, right? Just like a computer. And so there would be certain people who would move through life with behavior as their first kind of way of acting and interacting. Other people would use structure, and other people would use perception. So it was this really cool way of seeing how the human body acted and interacted based upon kind of like how their body responded. And I started to see this Dagaran cosmology, which had earth, water, fire, mineral, and nature. And I saw that water, people born in a water year had behavior as their kind of mode. And then people who were born in an earth year had structure. And so I started to see this overlay. And I also saw that, like fire and nature and mineral, it didn't quite match, but it started to make sense of some of these clients that I couldn't really make sense of. And so we started to utilize that along with astrology, and saw that basically when a person is born, it starts to align your atoms, your molecules, and your cells. And it essentially creates how you experience reality. And so there's this, what we call an elemental code that a person has, and we experience reality through that elemental code. So the people coming in, everyone, I think one of the most powerful things that's happening on the planet is this rise in technology that we have, and the quickening of technology. I mean, we think about like this conversation 2 years ago, we wouldn't be talking about AI, and now AI is like all over the place. It's like literally and the rise of it is happening really quickly. And the way that I see that is there will be a time in the near future where it's like the processing power of artificial intelligence will exceed human mental processing power. So we could look at it as like, wow, humans are becoming obsolete. Or we could say, well, no, mental landscape is not all of humanity. And in fact, what's more powerful is a soulful and spiritual connection to God and all of creation. And there is no AI, there is no robot, there is no machine that will ever match what we have in terms of soul and expression. So it's almost this perfect merger of like technology is steering us to actually value what it is that is most valuable for being a human being. And that is a soul expressing through a human physical body. And so I know this is a long way.
Amen. No, I'm with you, brother. Preach.
It's a long way around. And what I see is people are navigating this very steep acceleration of technology and the energy that it's outputting. So we're literally, right now we're steeping in Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and, 5G and, so many things that we can't even see. Just like we can't necessarily, some people can, but we can't see a person's soul. We can't see the spiritual exchange that's happening. And the energy body. And the energy body. And these things are all like external reflections of where our power is and where our focus needs to go, is that we are moving into this era where the physical body and the energy body, our physical being and our spiritual being, are supposed to come together. And we are to become something that is way beyond what's ever been on the planet. I heard you saying, like, we're about to move into this era where it's like Atlantis and Lemuria. And I was like, that is exactly it. We're replaying a cycle, but from a much grander scale, spiritually, I see. And so I think the challenges that people are coming in are various and really specific to kind of like how their elemental code lays out. So they're going to express a problem that's very unique to them, that will wake them up and put them on a path that will, it's like, it knocks on the specific door of the person, because some people would be like, oh, I'm forgetting things. I don't give a shift. But someone else will freak out about forgetting things. One person will have a rash on their arm and just be like, nah, I don't care. I'll just rub some honey on it and apple cider vinegar and like call it a day, or just put medication on it. Another person would be like, I'm dying. This is the worst thing that possibly happened. So depending upon like who you are and what would freak you out, which would lead you to getting on a path to really accelerate and wake up, that's what you're going to get.
Okay. So what you're saying is what's coming in the door are people resisting the change and that is presenting differently in their bodies, but it all has the same motive, which is to make the transition.
That's right.
Now, you say there are 5 elementals, basically, which is very similar to Chinese astrology, or Chinese elements as well. It's like 5, whereas Western has for some reason 4. That's interesting. Yeah. Does someone always stay in the same elemental their whole life, or do they progress through other elements?
They have kind of like essentially like a sequence, and they move through that sequence and start to layer each sequence, which we see as a rising in consciousness as they're able to experience reality through each of the layering of the elements.
So we are each all of the elements. Like, we wouldn't be here if we were missing an element, right? And it's about what's our order, what's our recipe. Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
So similar, I think, to, like you have the like Virgo and the steps, that's a framework and an ordering. And I think there's so many of these different frameworks and orderings that are coming alive on the planet, because we're meant to make things that used to be very mysterious to us not mysteries, because there are so many better mysteries to awaken to at this point. And so part of it is this quickening of like, hey, we've kind of cracked a lot of these codes. You don't need to fumble around anymore. You can know how you work and how you interrelate with others in a much easier way. And
they're true.
Better mysteries,
And they're all true.
Yes.
Because it's all a reflection of creation.
Totally.
And so whether you're in South Africa and you're looking at it like, oh, every 5 years this happens, have you noticed that? Right. Or you're in ancient Maya where they're basically looking at the orbit of Venus, and it's just like, oh man, every less than a year this happens. Have you noticed that? So it's all about noticing the patterns and then building intelligences around those patterns.
Exactly.
Which is fascinating. So do you feel that people are the creators of their ailments, like that they that they intentionally create these problems to be solved, or do you feel like things go out of whack like a chiropractic?
The body is so intelligent. The same problem, which is essentially the inability to adapt to everything that's going on, all the change that we were just talking about, the inability to adapt physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, shows up in the body. That same problem shows up differently in each person. And like we were saying, the body knows exactly how to get your attention. So ultimately, every time in my experience, when I become whole through something, which is like I heal something and then more, I am like so grateful that it happened because of the information that I got from it, from the growth I got from it. Like, I'm better than I was before it happened. So like when I have something come up, say a rash or a pain or a problem in my body, I know it's for my betterment. Like, there is a reconstruction going on inside me. My body is saying, you have to change. Like, and so the way it makes me feel is the way through. And so I know that doesn't directly answer your question, but I would say that the intelligence of the way things are made here are always leading us in the right direction.
That's a great answer. So really, we're never broken. We're just always healing.
Yeah.
So what you're saying. Yeah. And learning. And you brought up something you said just now on your website, you say the only way is through. And is that what you mean? What you just mentioned?
Yeah.
What do you mean by that? The only way is through.
It means, like, I think most of us have been raised to think that, like, problems are something to avoid. Like, avoid sickness, avoid discomfort, avoid what you're scared of. And what we're saying is that you're never going to grow without moving through that. That being said, as we do what we do, our work, the body becomes safe and the person becomes safe, and you become what we call physiologically safe. And that's where your body is actually at ease. So it's one thing to think you're safe, and physiological ease is like, no, the body is purring. Like, the body is sleeping like a baby. The digestion is great. Like, the tissues are flexible and soft, and the energy is flowing, and things are healing. And the fascia is moving, and the posture is up. Like, that's what we mean by physiological safety. And when that happens, you are safe enough to face the things that you've wanted to avoid. And so if we find ourselves avoiding something, it's because there's a part of us in the body that doesn't feel safe enough to move forward. And so we're not saying, like, force yourself through, hustle, like, just do it, because it may not work, because your body does have the protection mechanisms are wise. Like, they're wise.
It's there for a reason.
It's totally there for a reason. So we're not saying bust through what your body says, but we're saying connect to the body, and you'll get the energy you need to go through. And that your problems are teaching you, like, they're leading you through your own initiations.
And your body is presenting. I think there's another quote here. Your body has the answer. I'm not sure I'll find it here, but so it seems like your body is the source of the truth by listening to your body, from what you're saying.
Yes.
Yeah.
Whereas we tend to go, something's wrong, which is true, but it's more of like an email from the body of, like, here's something you need to look at.
Pay attention.
Totally.
Yes,
there's a bill to pay here. You know, there's a conversation to be had. There's a change to be made.
Yeah.
And so it's like there is all of creation that is moving within the confines of our body. And I think, you know, one of the things that I recently said to someone is, like, we were talking about this concept of avoiding. And it's like, you know, if you think about the word avoid, it's like we have to move into the void. We have to go into a void in order to surrender. And that surrendering process a lot of times means actually allowing what our body is already doing to happen. So instead of, like, our culture teaches us, there's a fever, you suppress it. If there's a pain, you take something to get rid of it. Even psychologically, it's like our culture. And I think this happens especially for, you know, we started the program talking about, like, healers are hot messes. And I was self-proclaiming as an exquisite hot mess. You know, I found that, you know, in my early life, like, drugs and alcohol were a means for me to tune out a lot of the white noise that I now know was a lot of, like, sensitivity and like spiritual information that I was just like, I didn't have the mental, emotional, you know, psycho-spiritual architecture to navigate that territory. So I would rather just kind of either check out or move into a territory that I felt more comfortable with, which was an altered state. Now I realize, like, I loved altered states because that's part of what I'm here to move into, which is basically supporting people to move from their kind of lockdown of mental reality of, like, this is the 3D reality we live in, and that is it. And there's nothing beyond this physical reality, into a void, which is a state of consciousness that's expanded and beyond their normal waking state, that for a moment they kind of, like, push through the veil, and they have this, like, you said, you know, your a suggestion for your next Friday show is what the flux. That came to me. So
thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. If that works.
That's a great expression. That's
yeah.
Great. What the flux?
What the flux? because I was thinking that I'm like, oh, because you said the word flux, and I was like, oh my God, that's such a great word. And then you were talking about your show. I was like, oh, what the flux? So anyway, but there's this fluctuation, this flux that is like a certain level of order that we have to move into that void in order for chaos to happen, which is essentially the energy of creation reorganizing, who it is that we are. And so part of our role is to first get people safe in their bodies and then support them for moments to move into that void, go into that state of kind of creative flux. And then they come out and their physiology changes and is free to do what it knows how to do. And there's a rise of consciousness that's associated with that just momentary level snapshot of awareness where they come back into their life and like, holy shift, like I can't continue doing the same things that I've been doing, which then starts to like change the course and the direction of what they're up to, because there's enough safety there alongside that awareness of like, I'm having this problem because I'm being something and someone different than I'm here to be. And that's just the path we're all on.
It's sort of it's a microcosm of the macrocosm of your life. You were a hot mess, you clean yourself up, and then that gave you permission to go be, and go anywhere, do anything. So you fix reality, that gives you permission to break reality.
That's it.
Very interesting. And I like the flux. I think we're about to go through a flux. Reminds me of Back to the Future and the flux capacitor.
Yes.
Just totally. A Gen X brother there.
Yeah.
So elemental embodiment exploration, EEE, is what?
Yeah, that's the methodology that we co-created, that we do in every in-person session that we give. We do embodiment. It's like where we help people put their hands on their bodies in certain ways with certain breath patterns that unfold this energy that we're talking about, that create this safety in the body. So we do it in every session, and we're also teaching people how to do it with themselves so they don't need us.
That seems to be the future. That's brilliant.
Yes. And that's what, when I was a kid that I always wanted to do. I thought, I saw kids like popping lots of ibuprofen and like whatever else they were, getting their hands on, and all these different things to modulate the body, and being scared when they got fevers. And I thought, no, like we all have this power. Like we all have this power to heal, and our body isn't something to be scared of or be separate from. And I knew that like, I'm going to help people remember that they can. Like we can. And that means physically, because the body is our ticket to being in this reality. If something happens to our body, we don't get to be here. And so, or at least we don't get to play fully here. I'm not saying that there's nobody else not in a body, but but that's our ticket to playing here. And so how you relate to your body is how you relate to life.
Oh, fascinating. That's a brilliant quote.
How you relate to body is how you relate to life. So I feel like what we're doing, teaching people to do this, is reminding people you can. Yeah. Like when you feel the way that your hands can touch your body and create breath and bliss and ease and relieve your pain and relieve those forgivenesses that you haven't been able to, those resentments that you haven't been able to like let go. And then you see the vision, and all of that came from your body and your hands in your living room. Right. Like that, then you realize like you're a creator of your own life. Yeah. Like no one can take that from you.
And so, And so the elemental embodiment exploration is essentially being able to, and we were talking about this, and it's so normal to us because we do it every day. And we were talking about how interesting and unique and weird I think it is for the culture to think in terms of like, wait, so I can help myself, I can heal myself, I can become more whole and more conscious and more present with my own hands. Like we always think in terms of like, oh, I need to go see someone. And, clearly we're in the business of like seeing people to support them of that. And also part of it is like kind of to like in this new era is like, wouldn't it be great if we could put ourselves out of business? I mean, it seems like there's so many other opportunities for what it is that humans are capable. And we could also consider that healers of the, you were talking about the Aries have to like, what are they going to be after this? Like they need to find, like, I don't know, like Right. And so in the same way, like, who do healers become when humanity is whole? And I think the answer to that is, and maybe this is the answer for Aries as well, but it's like explorers of consciousness. And I mean, you spoke beautifully about this. Like, this is where we're headed. We are here to be and do in ways that have never, at least in recorded history, been expressed. And so part of what we see as our mission is to give people tools to connect with their bodies. And it's very organic. It's literally like, put one hand here, put one hand here, and breathe in and out your mouth. But just allow, don't breathe. Like, you're already breathing. So it
takes the work out of breath work.
Yeah.
So if you've done breath work before, this is not.
That's another good sling. That's a good.
Yeah.
These are good marketing strings here. Yeah.
Totally.
It's entirely like non-forced. Like, even the breath isn't forced.
Yeah. And what happens is, like, the body starts to like move, and this Kundalini energy starts to happen, and people will start to have the experience. They'll start to feel emotions, all kinds of cool things.
In the wave. Yep.
All kinds of cool things happen, and it's their own body in their own hands, and they're not having to work at it. It's kind of bizarre and weird and cool that can happen, and it happens regularly.
It is.
It's brilliant. And also, just I think there's an overall arc in consciousness of the illusion of reality. We see the solution outside of us.
Yes.
And part of our ascension process is realizing that we are the solution we seek. Yes. And the answer is inside of us. I've noticed just putting my hand on my heart, like, my heart feels better.
Yes.
It's so simple. It's like,
totally.
I'll find myself rubbing my heart when my heart is hurt or broken or whatever. So I felt the power of that energy. And at first your mind's like, am I imagining this? But you really are feeling better. It's undeniable.
Yes.
So when you speak of the elemental embodiment exploration, you're speaking to those 5 elements also, are you not?
Yes. Yes.
That you're tuning into your element.
Yes, exactly. And you can even look to, like, if we're talking about Earth, you can look to, like, Virgo and Taurus and Capricorn as, like, the energies that they're representative of Earth energy. And Pisces is water energy. So it's literally, and the body actually expresses the elements very specifically. So, like, Earth is one part of your body making one little shift. And it creates stability, and it creates abundance. It's like, if you think about the Earth itself, it's like spinning insanely rapidly. And, it's flying, it's hurling through space, spinning like at thousands of miles an hour. And yet we all feel very stable on it. We would never know that is happening. And so it's this paradox of, it has, and as you mentioned, it's like very abundant. Everything that we need is on this planet. And so the body expresses in these little tiny shifts that actually liberates a tremendous amount of energy, and we start to feel safe with that. Water starts to be like this kind of flowy, almost like your body's becoming kind of like a belly dancer kind of thing. And from water, we start to tune into our emotions. We express our emotions more fully. We relate with ourselves better and relate with others.
We forgive.
We find reconciliation in ourselves, and fire is the energy inside our body and the energy in the energy body. So like what people talk about is the field or aura. And once that fire energy really starts to connect, like, we'll work with people, and we might have our fingertips, 2 feet away from their neck, and their neck starts to lift and stretch and move. And it looks like crazy magic. But the reality is, we're just connecting with the fire energy in the energy field, and people are starting to connect with and express that, because physical matter is just condensed energy, and within energy is matter. So we're just starting to allow people to connect with each of these elements in such a way that the element itself starts to come forth with its teachings, its wisdom, and people tune into that and have these aha awarenesses of, like, oh my God, I feel safe in my body. Oh my God, I can actually express emotion. I haven't cried in 5 years. Or, oh my God, I'm feeling energy around my body, and I'm feeling powerful, and I feel more confident than I've ever felt in my life. And it was all because I had my hands pointed at my body and I made a couple of statements about being a sovereign human being. And now suddenly like I feel energized and high and like a powerful human being. So it's like, it's these ways in which people get to engage and use language and connect with their bodies and then start to glean the wisdom that the elements have for us.
Yeah. And so
go ahead.
I was just saying, like, in summary, people can, you can lay down to do this practice or sit, whatever, stand, and with your problems or your life the way it is, and you will always exit that 5 to 10 minute practice with a new perspective. And that's what we meant by like getting the answers from the body. It's just like you get them from yourself. Like you'll do the practice and you'll feel calm and breath and like a little high. It's like getting stoned, but like off your own body and your own endorphins, and the cortisol and the stress, the adrenaline drops, and feel calm and peaceful. And you think about that problem again, and you always have a new way to look at it. So it moves you forward very, very, very quickly. It snaps you out of your old patterns. Every time you practice it, you can move forward better. And you had kind of asked in one of your questions, you were like, if you're thriving already, if your life is amazing already, does this help you? And like, yes, like if you're thriving, you're also always looking for like, what's next? Like, what's my next challenge? Like, what do I want to get into? Like, what's the next thing? This like amplifies your creativity, opens your bandwidth and your pleasure and your enjoyment of life. So yes, if you're really struggling, it's totally going to help you. If you are on top of the world, it's also going to help you. Yeah. Because the body always knows what's right for the individual.
It sounds like it's the window to ascension, really, like, because once you are connecting to your primary element, I imagine there is up until then maybe some resistance to it one way or another.
Yes. It can be.
So once you're simpatico with your energy expression, I would imagine that opens the doors to unlimited possibilities, simply because we're fighting against our own nature in essence. Yes. And maybe it's because we're trying to be like other people, or the way our doctor or Western medicine doctor told us to do it. And I'd love to go to the other elements if we may. You mentioned, so how does fire dance? I'm wondering, I'm seeing myself in a club now. I'm like, oh yeah, water signs are like that. That's right. So right. Those are water elements. The ones doing that on stage, and like, are fires the one jumping like in a mosh pit? Like,
yeah, they very well could be. They're also very sensitized to the energy of other people. So it's like the fire people will be like, oh, I just felt a shift in the energy. So, and there's an intensity with fire people, like they like to build that intensity and express it, and also will feel energy in their body.
And fire is like the lights are on in the person. You look in their eyes and you're like, somebody's home. Right. Like they're in there.
There's a glow.
Feel them, and there's like a warmth and a glow from them.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like Dancing with the Stars kind of, I think, contestants, really, like really intense tangos or something. Yeah. And what are the other two elements that we didn't speak to yet? Do you mind speaking to the other two elements?
Yep. So these are the two that aren't necessarily expressed in, So there's, after fire, there's mineral. And the way that we look at mineral, so mineral could be looked at like in Chinese would say metal.
I was wondering. Okay.
Yeah. And so mineral is also, when you look at a more complex, so if you look at like where two signs come together, and so you have like a fire sign next to, let's say, an earth sign. Yeah, like a cusp, right? So that creates a mineral because it's basically two different elements coming together that crystallize. So cusps are going to be situations where mineral shows up.
Interesting. So they're kind of hybrids.
Yes, they're hybrids. And they carry two different frequencies and come together to create a different third frequency.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And how it expresses in the body is actually really interesting, because it's like when mineral energy expresses through the body, it's like this large global, almost yogic posture where like their arms and legs will start to, like, they'll posture and position on the body like they're moving into a yoga pose. So when we do sessions on the table and we start to work with mineral, they'll go into these large global, they do cobra pose, or, they create a bridge, or, so it's very global and expressive in how it moves energy. And it's almost like if you took like a bunch of earths together and some water with fire and kind of put it all together, it creates like this form that contains and amplifies energy. And that's what crystals do. And so that's how mineral expresses.
Interesting. And minerals can
yeah.
be any combo. It could be fire,
Any
water,
combo.
water,
Yep.
earth. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Interesting.
Yep.
And so
And they
then
can
what would be the, go ahead.
Yeah, and they can also, interestingly enough, show up as a multiplicity of the same element. So you could have like someone who has, oh, did you say that already?
Like earth, earth, and water, water.
Yes.
Well, no, I bet. Yeah, it was. Yeah, you can. So you can do like a double earth would be a mineral.
Exactly.
Totally.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And then there's air. So
That's the fifth element, air. Okay.
Yep. And then and we actually do, so most indigenous, to include like Chinese, use 5 elements. And we actually included air of Western, and we use 6 elements. So we have air, and then we also have nature.
Okay.
And part of
two different kinds of air that you're classifying one kind of air as nature.
Yes, exactly. And I struggled with this one. And for a long time, I was just like, air, nature, they're the same thing. And how I now interpret this is nature came from the West African Dagra people, and they talk about nature very similarly as like ether or air. It's the transformational, so it's like all of creation energy. And so when I was like in this time period where I was like, well, I don't understand the difference between air and nature, and I kind of just let that be this rolling open point. And another kind of wake up in the middle of the night situation and realize that in more Western modern cultures, we're much more focused on soul development, the individual and the soul expression. When you look at indigenous communities, they're not into self-help. They're not into soul development. It is a community. And so nature really represents the collective souls all together in the tapestry that as a community expresses spirit, which is a different way of being and living than an individual soul looking to express themselves. And so the way that we see it is, if your soul is desiring an individuated expression, you're going to land in a modern culture. And if your soul is wanting to express what it's like to be in a collective community, then you're going to land in a more indigenous expression. And I also see that we're in a giant masquerade party where there's a lot of modern people who want to do it the indigenous way, and there's a lot of indigenous people who want to do it the modern way. So there's just a lot of like flipping that's going on, I think, on the planet right now, because we can.
And we're tired of the old way. Like whatever it happens to be, we're all over it. Everyone's over it everywhere. Like we've been there, done that. Let's get on to something more interesting. So nature people, how do they express that in their body? Is there sort of like, would that be like, mom got a cold, so I got one too? Is it community driven body responses, or is it more spiritual motive, you think? Where's the line in the body, how that embodies nature?
Nature is like the principle of transformation, and nature people Brian says it's like putting all of the 5 elements in a blend, in a Vitamix, and turn it on high. And nature people are the most explosive, how energy moves through them. And they will have like big, like movements, and it goes in the deepest part of the spine. And they are the most like expansive and explosive on the table.
Extra. Yeah. It's like all of creation moving through the body. So it's at once. So it's like earth plus water plus fire plus mineral plus air. And the one thing that we a little bit left out is air, and air is just really expansive breath that creates a lot of spaciousness. It's almost like time just disappears when air comes online. And it's almost like kind of everything slows down and expands. Whereas nature, just like in nature, like hurricanes come out of nowhere. The one day all of the leaves are on the trees, and then like over the course of a weekend they're gone. Like there's a bamboo that like lives underground for 5 years, does nothing, has all these extreme conditions that need to be met in terms of water and soil, and then all of a sudden out of nowhere in 6 months it grows 80 feet. So I look at nature also as kind of like it's nothing, everything. And it's very kind of dormant. And then when it expresses, it's very like big and majestic in how it shows up.
Can be ferocious. And so you're saying that we go through, so for 5 years on Earth, it's all nature people are being born. And then for 5 years on Earth?
No, 1
Okay.
year, 1 year cycle. So for instance,
Okay.
this is a nature year.
Okay.
And then we're going to move into a mineral year once we hit 24. And it just goes by the last digit. And so basically zeros and sixes, 0 years and 6 years at the end. So 1960 and 1976. Is that right?
Right.
Oh, wait, 75. Sorry.
75,
0 and
yeah.
5. 0 and 5s, those are earth. And then 1 and 6 is water. And 2 and 7 is fire. And 3 and 8 are nature.
So both of y'all are nature.
Yeah.
people.
So we're nature bros.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
That's
yeah.
cool.
Yep.
Yeah, I am a nature. That's interesting. Here I was judging them too.
For sure.
I was like, those crazy nature people. What years are those? I want to avoid them. It's like,
Yeah.
it's me.
definitely.
The
So
killer
funny.
is in the house.
But that's true. People
Yeah.
who know me will say, like, I was just like, you're just steady. Then I'm like, okay, everything's changing. That's it.
Yes.
I'm just changing everything in my life all at once.
Yes.
And people are like, whoa, slow down. And I'm just like, no, it must all go now in a
Right.
flash sale. So
Yeah.
that makes total sense. How interesting. And that explains growing up. And, I used to move across the country all the time because of my dad's job. And I'd get to a school and they'd all be like, y'all are the good generation. The last year was really tough. Like teachers notice that
Yes.
each generation, that's one thing you can notice. Like,
Totally.
yeah, the fourth graders are effing crazy this year. You could
Yes.
always tell that class was tied to
Right.
a year, most of the cases. It's really
Yeah.
fascinating. And I guess nature be the ones more impulsive to be willing to be innovative or take risk, probably.
Yes.
Or
They're
be a little
here to
out there.
create chaos.
Yeah.
They're here to create chaos where we need it, and they're here to create order when we need it.
Yeah.
So they're like
Whatever's
paradoxical
needed.
people.
Yep. Totally.
Yeah, like
Whatever's
whatever's needed
needed.
in the moment.
Yep. Happy to destroy, happy to create
Yeah.
what's necessary.
And
The Dagger people call it situational responsiveness.
Yeah.
It's like if you drop a nature person in the middle of chaos, they'll just like transform it. They'll just be like, oh, I love this.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
it's a puzzle.
The last years we didn't mention are mineral, and it's the 4 years and the 9 years. And mineral people have a thing about belonging, so we got to make sure.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Like, they're gonna have to left out.
You just hit the minerals right where it
Person,
hurts,
too.
right in the cobalt. Yeah.
So we're
Okay.
gonna include them.
That's funny because in my step system, 4 is also the same thing. I belong, all about belonging as well.
Wow.
So the
That's
conscious
wild.
of belonging. So I like the overall. So that begs the question: what does awaken your genius mean then?
Your genius has always been inside of you. And that's why you can look back to when you're a little kid and the things you wanted and the things you did and the things you said. And people have an understanding of like, this is them in their purest form. I can't wait to see who they grow up to be.
Mhm.
And then, as we all know, life happens. And a lot of this, there's this whole inability to adapt thing that happens. We can't always adapt to all of the things all of the changes that go on, and the divorces and the things that go on, right? All the different things. I don't even have to go into it right now. But
You know
like,
what your thing is.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
you know, the things that you just like have a hard time getting over, and the way we wear them in our body, we wear them like coats and backpacks, and we protect ourselves. And that's why we have these ineffective patterns, right? That we're always trying to grow out of. And we're wearing that as protection. And under all that protection is actually our genius.
Mhm.
So as we become whole in the body, the genius just starts coming out. Like the enthusiasm returns, like you're 5 again. And you remember those projects you always wanted to work on, and you actually finally have the energy and bandwidth and motivation and courage to do it.
Yeah. And in its deepest form, genius is our connection to spirit. Genius is our through line to God. It's like when we are, so, in our culture, we've been taught like, genius is the rare bird, and we look to the Einstein, we look to the people who have these, extraordinary off the charts levels of intellect or creativity, or, some kind of expression that's just not normal to the culture. And indigenous cultures look at genius as like everyone has genius. And in fact, genius in the Latin root is attendant spirit at one's birth. And so from that perspective, we all have this connection. And so part of it is less about something that we have to get, as Chelsea Ray mentioned. It's something that we have to just open up to. And once we open up and we have that connection, on some level, whatever you want to call it, God, divine, spirit, cosmos, then it's like the after effect is we're engaging in ways that look like we're extraordinary, that we're brilliant, that we're massively creative. And that is the cusp that I feel humanity is on. And the way that we see genius frequency is the capacity for people to be so connected in this body, which is this, 3D expression, that the overflow is into beyond 3D. We move beyond time in the fourth dimension, the fifth dimension, the sixth dimension. And part of why 6 elements is because I was in the middle of the night kind of talking to, when I was like exploring, like, well, what do I do with, I feel like it's just kind of air nature, like they're together. And it was told to me that it was important to expand into 6 elements because we're moving into a 5-dimensional expression on the planet. And so we needed a container of 6 in order to be able to navigate and hold and contain what 5 dimensions are. We needed one layer outside of that.
That makes total sense. Well, if consciousness is expanding and we're moving from density to more lighter vibration, it would make sense that our perspective of reality would be somehow expanding. There'd be add-ons, right?
Yes,
new
exactly.
features and new perspectives. And so from your perspective, then, we are all geniuses pretending to be idiots, right?
Yes, totally. Yeah. We got lost on the way to the library. Yeah.
We forgot.
And I would think that if you watch children grow up, it seems like they begin as geniuses.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we slowly talk them into being an idiot. I mean,
Yeah.
speaking generically and funny, but
Totally.
like the more we press upon them all these rules and laws and making other people, just like you're saying, everybody has a different way of expressing, like projecting my expression onto their expression, they lose touch with their genius, it seems,
Yes.
over time.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's, it's kind of in the old world, I think it was a perfect ruse. I think it was a perfect hide and go seek game, for us all to play. And, the rules of the game are changing in this new reality. And so I think we're in this transitional zone where it's imperative that there is this cutting edge of humanity, where there is a certain percentage of people kind of cracking that edge and, coming out with ways of being on the planet. Clearly your work is a huge testament to the individuals who are coming on to give the tools and the strategies and a perspective that really expands people. I mean, your work is powerful and it's important.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah,
and
for
sister.
sure. For sure. And so, this is the time period where it's like, people are waking up and all these new ways of tuning into yourself are going to be made and are available. And we're just going to go through this quickening process. And at the same time, it's going to look kind of dark and scary for a moment. So don't be afraid to be kind of creeped out for a moment as we change the channel here.
And uncomfortable.
Uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Said the Taurus.
Right.
Bring a pillow, y'all, and a neck cushion as well.
Yeah.
So 2 questions. And one is, let's go to what you all offer. You have it called a Genius Embodiment Bundle. So how do I start jumping on, if I'm not in Asheville, into this process and learning your system? Your website says that you have 2 basic programs, if not mistaken. One that you have to do that leads to the second, which seems to be an elevation of it. Would you walk us through what the Genius Embodied Bundle is?
Yeah. Thanks for asking. So you can begin learning how to put your hands on your body to create all of the stuff we're talking about in this conversation tonight, to like start moving you forward on your soul's journey, simultaneously healing your body and also your emotions and all of the baggage stuff, with our Genius Embodied bundle. And part one is 6 modules, one for each element. And each element has its own embodiment process, like a different way you put your hands, like maybe like this or like this, a different breathing pattern, right? So we give you a guided embodiment journey in each module. So there's like 6 journeys in each, or 6 journeys in part one, one journey in each module, and also like really clear demonstrations where we're saying what we're doing and why, stories to apply each element, real stories from our real life about like miracles that have happened with each element. And so the first part is those 6 modules is just getting to know each element and getting a direct connection with each element. That's really important. It's the fundamentals. And then part 2, do you want to talk about that?
No, I want to go into part 1 real quick.
Okay.
And there's kind of 2 practices. So within each module that's exploring one specific element, part of it is in support of unpackaging trauma. So our elemental codes get scrambled. So it's in support of people's bodies unscrambling trauma. And then there's a second practice that then supports the alignment of that element. So it's kind of a 2-part system, which is great because everyone has an opportunity to kind of like unscramble wounding, and it like peels a little layer away, and then they can land the alignment a little bit deeper. And then another layer will come up, and it kind of goes back and forth, and that starts to deepen that connection with that element.
Yes. And I love that you mentioned that, because a lot of the healing world talks about healing trauma and unwinding from stress and relieving stress. And that's really only the first part. That's the first part of our program. Nobody is talking about building alignment. It's like affirmations for your body. It's like building upon what's true, saying, let's create more of that. And when you build on that alignment, you actually become more resilient to stress, and the same things that stress you out now don't stress you out later, which is an incredible thing to experience. So it really supports your growth, as you might imagine, that like this version of the future version of you is much more strong, capable, courageous, clear, connected to God and spirit. And that's the building alignment is how that happens. And then part 2 is where you learn your individual recipe, and that begins live in January. So part 1 are pre-recorded. You get those right away. And part 2, we begin in January. It's another 6 modules, but this time you're going to experience it in your individual code. So in your personal recipe, and this is when your genius starts to really shine. You start to understand like why you're unique and different from everyone else, and how to know yourself in this way. And more importantly, how to actually work with yourself in this way and embody your code, which makes you walk into any room and like be yourself. Just
very
like what
powerful.
we're all just what we're all trying to do is essentially just be ourselves. Like we don't have to strive. Like we just need to sink into who we are. And that's part 2.
Yeah, it's hard to be your authentic self. I think we're still all uncomfortable in our own skin. And so, going back to part 1, then I'll take us back to part 2. In part 1, you realize I'm born in this year, so my leading element, I guess, would be the way to call it. How do you term that? Like it's your default, but then I'm expressing the other 5 elements somewhere in my life as well, or somewhere inside myself as well. Is that how it goes together?
That's correct. And you're actually skipping ahead. And so that's actually the part 2. So the part 2 is more boutique-y because you're getting into your own code. Part 1, we actually take people through what we call the collective code. And what we found is there's basically 2 codes that everyone has embodied. One is the collective code, and I'll explain that in a moment. And then the other is what we've been talking about, which is your individual code, which is when you're born, and then it lines that sequence up. So the collective code, everyone shares. It is unique to no one. It is, which is beautiful. And it's just the simple layering of earth, water, fire, mineral, air, nature. And it's like a climbing of consciousness. And, it starts at the root and ends up at the crown. And what happens when people start to line that sequence up, which is different than your personal code, your individual code, is the ability to, I don't know if you've ever had, Christopher, kind of the experience of like, as you've been through your process, you're becoming more aware, you're changing, you're coming into yourself, you're becoming more authentic, that there's this feeling of like, I feel like the more I go and grow and become conscious, like I'm losing friends. I feel like it's rare. I'm climbing a ladder. There's less people at the top here. And this weird thing where I feel like I'm not able to relate as well with the rest of humanity.
And the more alone I feel.
Yeah. And the more alone, and kind of also easily, like, it's easy as we do that, even though there's this like thought of like, we are becoming more conscious, but it's also easy to kind of get pissed off about the people who are not like doing the work. So what we have found with this collective code is it starts to level the empathetic playing field of like understanding that everyone goes through their own process at their own pace. And it's like, when you see people acting and interacting in certain ways that, you know, in the past you might have judged, you kind of go like, I remember when I was like that. Like, I remember when I did those kinds of things. And I understand, like, I don't necessarily agree with what's happening, but I understand it. I can get it. I can have compassion for this person.
And it helps you go home at Christmas and talk to your family.
Right.
And just be okay with like whatever you're talking about and ask about them and like, you know, and just relate with like the person you meet out on the street. Like, it just helps you feel like you belong on Earth.
Yeah.
Like you're not an alien.
Right. There are so many emergent flavors now. I mean, if we like all the time on the planet, there's been individuals, but the possibility of flavors of expressions of humans and humanities right now is like seemingly endless. So this first code supports us to be more related to whatever level, layer, color, whatever the difference is kind of like, I don't get it, but I don't care. Yeah. Like I'm interested.
It's like feeling connected and like you belong.
Yeah.
And that's the first layer, and having a direct connection with each element is the first layer. That's why that's in part 1 before you get into like what's special about you, which is part 2.
And it's a slower, more progressive, more kind of like gentle way to enter into the elemental, you know, experience. Basically, this
work is powerful. Yeah. And so you want that first.
And we actually for you know, the very first, I mean, 3/4 of the last 5 years, 6 years that we've been developing this, like we only had the code, which is a much more individual code. It's a more exponential ride. And so as we were developing that, it was intense because people were making a lot of quick shifts very fast and they were integrating them, but it was kind of like, when is this growth thing ever going to stop? And interestingly enough, my mom passed last August. And when she passed, I had this tune in of this whole collective code. And I mean, basically it felt like she was just like, you know, here's everything I want you to know, son, on my way out. And this thing just kind of woke up in me. And I was like, you know, we started to talk about it and unfold. And you know, again, like very interestingly, like my mom, a mineral year, Chelsea Ray, a mineral year. Like, I also don't know that I would have like the ability to be in relationship and download that information if there wasn't like, you know,
a receiver
for it.
like an antenna.
Yeah. So the collective code emerged, you know, a year and a half ago, and it was a game changer for us and our practice and our clients, because it really kind of started to put the brakes and softening and like pads around the ride. You know, it's like before we were on this like a rickety old roller coaster, but on like one of the new built ones, you know? So it's like a 1950s like car, but on a brand new one that's doing loop-de-loops, and there's no like thing to, you know, hold on. And now it's like, we kind of have the padding and everything's like, it's a very smooth ride that feels more honoring of the growth trajectory.
And
good.
A benefit of part 2, we love taking a group through this program. You do, as you know, you have a community. We move more quickly and more powerfully with a group of people walking together. So we have a live Telegram thread. And if you can't make the live, modules, you'll get the replay. It's not a big deal if you can't attend the classes, but you will be on a Telegram thread to share wins, receive support. It's really fun. And it's always popping because we find that people we work with are frequency leaders of frequency. And a lot of times, like, it's not uncommon for you to be the only one in your family who's like this, or the only one in your, like, to not know a bunch of people who are doing what you're doing. And so it's really powerful to be in a room of people embodying this together. It is more than the sum of its parts. It is so powerful.
It's, it sounds a lot like astrology to some degree, in the sense that you have like the 12 signs, which would be the elementals, and Aries is this and a lot. Then you run your chart and you have like, but you're actually all signs, and there's like degrees and shades of each of them.
Yes.
Same sort of arc, going from what's your sign, baby, to, oh my God, I have a this rising.
Right.
But what's different about what you guys are doing that I won't say compete with, but astrology can't compete with, is that you're doing the energies and the embodiment, how it embodies in your body. Because it's like, if you change your spirit and you don't change your embodiment, then you're eventually going to probably go back to the old patterns or feel trapped in your body. It seems like you have to sort of tweak it on both sides. It's both the Reiki at 7 years old and the chiropractor at 11 or whatever it was.
Totally.
It's incredibly frustrating to know what to do, but like your body's not coming with you, and your body's who's making your choices.
Yes.
Right.
Like the body makes the choices. Our mind we can force and we can make stuff happen in the short term, but like long term, body's making the choices, because body's your ticket for being here. So like I know what that's like to be like, I just know what to do, but why can't I do it? And that was a part of my sicknesses that I went through. And so it feels so good to like feel your body coming along with you in this personal development and soul growth ride. It feels so good. And we want you to have that.
Yeah. And actually guiding, it's not just kind of like, we're kind of like on the spiritual path, and we're like dragging our bodies like reluctantly along, And so to have this relationship with the physical body and, and especially, I mean, a lot of people, and, I think this is also a call to consciousness and spirituality, have so many different, like, not beautiful, brilliant, amazing relationships with their physical body. Like there's so many different ways to not love your body. So it becomes a really nice thing to have your body as, a trusted ally that feels like a very intimate, deep, loving relationship.
Well said. And, to Chelsea Ray, your relationship to your body is your relationship to life. That just hit me like a bullet. Y'all, I highly recommend. It's the Genius Frequency. It's geniusfrequency.com is their website. It sounds like we have enough time between now and your program, your phase 2 starts. That technically, if someone did the first part, they can get it complete in time to join you in the community aspect of it. And by the way, I love the paradox of it. It's like, you learn the elementals, you learn the global alone, and then you learn the personal with others. I love that paradoxical structure there. I think that's brilliant. In some ways, it may take a while to figure out how. But how long does the first program take? I mean, is there your second program begins what date in the new year? Forgive me.
January 4th. January 4th. And it's really important to take the first 2 modules of part 1 by January 4th, which is they're 90 minutes each. So, and every person has a different pace. We did it with the group 1 week at a time, 1 element at a time. So there's still time to do all 6. And it's really important that you just do the first 2 at least. Yeah. Because that will give you what you need to go through it.
That sounds brilliant. So geniusfrequency.com. Thank you both for being here today. You've taught me some amazing things I need to learn about my own relationship to my body. I think you're doing amazing work. I think you're an interesting couple to watch for the rest of my life to see where you go next. And if we had more time, I'd like to have you on again sometime, because I'd like to sort of talk about where you see the human race going next. That would be fascinating. There's a lot of stories, a lot of questions I didn't get to because, well, you're Virgos, so you gave me everything, which I love, by the way, and the depths of it. No, that's not a complaint. That's
we're honest.
Awesome.
We love it.
Yeah, we love it. We're soaking it up. Our viewers loved it too. If you don't mind, take a quick little break and stay backstage. There's a couple things I want to say to you before we leave, but thank you for being on, everyone. And thank you everyone for being here, and thank you for being on. Go ahead, Chelsea.
Yes.
May I offer a gift to your people?
You sure may.
Okay. So, okay. Our program, our bundle is on early bird sale until Sunday. So if you're thinking about it, check out the website. And we have it, we're newer at having a community and doing this. Like, we've been doing what we're doing for like decades. And so we have a lot of people who worked with us for a long time, but as far as offering things online, that's newer. And so we're actually offering our program at an introductory rate. And I also wanted to gift your people a promo code for $100 off the course.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Thank you.
Yeah. So you can type in Sanctuary 100 for $100 off the bundle. And it's our gift to you for being like, 130 people have taken this course, maybe 150 so far. So you're in the first group of people to get to, you're a frequency leader. Like, you're in the first group of people to get to embody this and lead this on the planet. And thank you. Yeah,
thank you so much for having us.
And
thank you.
Like, to appreciate Christopher, like, thank you for reminding people every week and beyond, like, what they're made for and what they're here for, and that they can, and combining people together, like, so that they don't feel alone in it. Like, the community you've built is incredible.
And also, just to reflect on that, we got turned on to your work, a couple of years ago, and heard and listened and watched, and we took a little bit of a break. And I have to say, man, coming on and hearing you this time, I was like, whoa, he's made like a complete,
we're super impressed.
Like an up level on how much like deep connection and interweaving that you have of the soul of, there was just so many of your pieces. I was just like, I'm a fan. I need to listen to this weekly. So I just want to say, like, you're doing amazing work. Brilliant.
Thank you. So are you too. I'm going to take your course. I need it. I need the embodiment, but thank you very much. I think we're all growing and accelerating our growth now. We're starting to get that rapid acceleration and ascension. And it was like slow as hell there in the beginning.
Yes, it was.
But now we're starting to swim higher and higher. So thank you very much. And our community is your community. So I think we're all creating this great web of light. So it's great to have you. We consider you as family. And go back and watch the comments. People loved what your work is. Please go back. Okay. Well, I'll see you backstage. And thank you once again, everyone. And the code is, tell me one more time, 100.
Sanctuary
100.
Sanctuary 100, everyone. By the way, wouldn't make a bad Christmas gift to someone you love. Just saying.
Totally.
You can gift away healing. Of course, people have to want it, but it's a good gift. Thanks, you all. See you soon.
Bye.
Ciao for now. All right. That was great. Weren't they wonderful? I love their energy. And they glow. You can tell. I think there's, I'm curious on the relationship. They made match made in heaven, came down to do some genius stuff, literally do some genius stuff. It's amazing. And we'll post that Sanctuary 100 code in the description of the video. Go to their website, check it out. It's really well put together. It looks authentic. You've seen them now in person and what it's about. And I, for one, am interested in totally getting on top of my nature elemental and thinking about it. It really resonates. I love it. And I didn't know, it's so interesting to hear, I didn't talk about this in the interview, but like the human race started in Africa. So we're talking about probably one of the oldest systems that have ever been on the planet as far as understanding humans. I bet far older than astrology. I bet you this elemental approach is. So fascinating stuff. Geniusfrequency.com. And, we're so grateful to have you here as we wrap up this show. It's come again, that time of year to talk about my countdown to 2024. If you've been around for a while, I do this live event at the beginning of the year, every year. It's called the Countdown Series, where I count down all the major elements for the next year in 2024. It's going to sound a little sales sticky, but 2024 is probably the most important year of our life, at least so far. And I'm not trying to be dramatic, although I love drama. I really think it's going to be a phenomenal year. And I think you want to, put yourself in the position to take advantage of the chaos. So this is, of course, a nature here telling you that there's going to be chaos next year. I know better than anyone. Ask Dr. Brian and Chelsea Ray. I am the nature element. Next year is chaotic, and I'm going to walk you through in this countdown to 2024 everything you need to know through the 12 months. I'm also making this much smaller than it was. I used to do these things that were 4 hours long, and honestly, people were drowning in the information. This one's going to be compact to about 2 hours of lecture and a half hour of question and answer, and I'm going to leave a lot of the myriads of details to Namaste Today and Serious Joy. I get into the myriad of details on my other work. This is more big picture. This is more the umbrella of what you can expect. And we will be putting out a special early bird special to get it at a discount. By the way, mark your calendars. It's January 13th at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. And if you go to newyears.guru, that's the website it'll take you. Fill in your information to get on our email list. I will email out the early bird special here sometime this week. It'll be a certain little window. And then, of course, next week I'll have the ability to buy tickets directly. But if you want to get on that list for the early bird special, go to newyears.guru. And by the way, you can get on any of our email lists too, because we do a weekly email for our whole program. Now, speaking of programs, seriousjoy.com. You don't have to do it alone. You can hire professionals to help you in this ascension process, daily coaching, text messages, pep talks every day to help you come into your power, navigate the energies. We're here to help you understand your truth and your purpose. By the way, the 40 Days of Truth and Purpose is going to remain on our site for this price of just $19.95 a month until Q1 next year, at which point the Truth and Purpose program is going to be priced much higher and it'll be signaled off. It will not be a feature of being a subscriber. So if you would like to take advantage of our 40-day programs, our 40 Days of Truth and Purpose, 40 Days of Self-Love, and we have a 40-day program coming out in February to be announced, you can do it for just $19.95 a month right now. Then it will be accelerated to a higher price later. With Jupiter and Taurus, we're going to be charging what we deserve. So come on down to seriousjoy.com and see for yourself the magic of spiritual support. Now, we have other features. For instance, Jo Zammit is going live with her new moon ceremony video this weekend. Jo is our artisan that basically helps us create powerful ceremonies. She's helping to activate teachings and energies of the ascended masters, of the country's elder traditions, to not only find the golden thread of love that unites us, but to use this through the power of astrology. She is, I don't want to just reduce her to Martha Stewart, like a Martha Stewart that makes magic, basically. You are learning how the crafts, how to make altars, how to create things magically and, transform your life through the tangible energies of ritual. So check out Jo Zammit. Her video goes live this weekend, her new ceremony video for the full new moon that happens next Tuesday. Last week, we had a great episode of Angel Intervention with Devin Doer. I stepped in for Heather Exposito at the last moment. We did 3 subscribers talking about their issues and their angelic advice as well. This show went down really well. It's now available right off the main menu. Just hit Self-Study Hall. And this week, we have a new episode of Keeping It Real with Kristen Ryder. The title of the episode is Believing is Seeing. Kristen's going to interview 3 subscribers who are going to relate a story where they believed beyond all measure, beyond all doubt, and they saw something through belief alone. So if you're having a hard time believing in your future, be inspired by tuning in this Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific, exclusively on seriousjoy.com. Membership has nothing but privileges. Looking forward to that. I'll be backstage with Kristen, as I love to hang out with my soul sister. Sharing is caring. The best thing you can do to help us is to share us with your friends and family. I do have the 12 horoscopes that go live on Tuesdays. Share a horoscope to someone or share this whole Namaste Today live if you feel like they're ready for the big transition of their life. We do appreciate that. Also, some people do like to donate directly to me. I accept donations. It's paypal.me/Sensei Christopher. If you want to hang out with our community, as you can tell from the super chat, everyone here is awesome and cool and enlightened. Dr. Brian was talking about how it gets lonely at the top unless you join the seriousjoy.club. SeriousJoy.club is a club on Facebook where you can come interact with people. You can also advertise your spiritual business. If you are a spiritual business owner, you cannot advertise for anything that's not spiritual, by the way, like spiritual jewelry would count, for instance, but don't sell your used car in our club. We'll take that down. We also have a human design study group for comparing and learning and working together if you want to understand your HD design. It's a great club. The only rules we have is always be compassionate and kind and no politics. If you want to follow us on our other social media, we have a linked tree. It's at seriousjoy.social. seriousjoy.social. Follow me. There's some interviews of me and things there. And if you'd rather listen instead of watch, we are in audio form on podcasts. We're on Spotify, Stitcher, and Apple Podcasts. All right, friends. Well, it has been such a lovely evening. I have enjoyed seeing everyone in the chat. Shout out to Scott Cruz. I saw him in the audience. Shout out to Daryl. Thank you for showing up, brother. Also, special thanks to our producer, Noelle Way. Send some love and blessings to Noelle today, please, for us. Everyone, a collective prayer. Also, she's doing okay, but she's under the weather is why. So send her some love and some healing energy. Thanks to our director, Sarah Lyman, as well. My business partner, Eben Freeman, and everyone on our staff at Serious Joy. We are all here walking in the light and doing this journey together. Until next week, we love you so much. Live, love, be.
It's serious joy, joy, joy.